Council meeting for November 2nd to order. Welcome. First day of fall. Our first item of business, item number 2, is new councillor business. 2.1, we have a memo from Councillor Javekwa.
I'd like to make a motion that we have a specific meeting on economic development. And I guess we'll, if we get a seconder, we take it to the mayor's business section.
Okay, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Rogers. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We'll do that. Any other new councillor business? Councillor Schumann?
So last week I attended the Kiwanis K-PAC Society AGM, and I just wanted to give you a few of the numbers that were in the report. From July 2014 to June 2015, there was a total of 57 events held at the auditorium. Studio rentals, workshops, etc. There was 95. There was over 700 children and 200 adults attending different classes at the Performing Arts Center over the year, and more than 3,000 people attended the Festival of the Arts performances, concerts, recitals, etc. So while the AGM was going on, they're talking that this is the Performing Arts Center, but really in the end, it just sounds like it's our community center. It's being very well used, and a lot of people are hanging out at the center. So it's doing very well, and I'm glad of it.
Thank you. Any questions, Councillor Rogers?
Oh, no questions.
Sure. I was just going to comment. I was in at this event center the other night. I had some friends in from town, and we went through, and I was talking to the young man Tree who's operating the cafe, and he said it's completely outstripped his expectations in terms of the amount of business and the volume of people and things that are in there. So it was such a great statement to hear that from him in terms of operating a nice business in the community and the downtown core that's really generating that kind of activity. So it really is very positive.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, I just wonder about is there any data on the use of the meeting rooms? I know the studios are well used, but I've hardly ever seen any use of the meeting rooms.
So the studio rentals, and she, in brackets, first aid, workshops, and meetings were 95.
Yeah, that's
95 rentals of the meeting spaces. They are very well used.
Reread that again, would you?
Studio rentals, and
Yeah.
that's not pottery and quilting and arts. That's the actual meeting rooms.
Studio rentals are synonymous with meeting rooms?
Okay. Meeting room rentals, then I'll say. Workshops, meetings, and first aid, because the first aid companies rent them a lot. So she has 95. That's all I know.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Good. Councillor Rogers?
I was just going to go on to more councillor
Next,
business.
go ahead.
Good?
Yep.
Okay. My, out of all the calendar days, the most important one for me is November the 11th.
Look at this.
Remembrance Day.
Oh, thanks.
I would encourage all citizens to go out there and purchase a poppy, as they are priceless. And I would like to recognize our veterans from past, present, and future, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Great comment, and we'll all hopefully be at the Remembrance Day ceremonies next week. Thank you. Councillor Wilbur?
I just actually wanted to thank all the volunteers that spooktified Pioneer Village and gave our families and kids and citizens a safe place to go for Halloween. And just a special thank you actually to Longhorn Oilfield Services, who actually brought a light plant down and lit up the parking lot so everybody could get in and out of there safely. So I really thank them for doing that at the last minute when I called them. But everybody had fun, and I think there's thousands of kids that went through there, and And kudos to Councillor Schumann, who had the kids zone completely under control, and we had some organized chaos in there, so thank you.
Thank you. You know, I was at the female hockey jamboree on Saturday, and I was talking to, at the memorial area, I was talking to some ladies from Fort Nelson. There was 5 girls or 6 girls here for the jamboree, and they were talking, they took their kids out for Halloween to the family-friendly event at the Pioneer Village, and they were just raving about what a great job they did down there. So kudos to everybody involved in that. Yeah. So it was really cool to hear that kind of feedback from people who were visiting our community and took advantage of an event that was organized. Great job. Any other councillor business? Thank you. Item 3.1, we have minutes. Minutes of a regular meeting of council of October 19th for adoption. Councillor McFadden, seconded. Councillor Schumann. Any errors or omissions in the minutes? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes? Anything? 5.1 correspondence. 5.1, we have a letter from Rezi Saidi from October 15th or 27th regarding a request for property tax reduction for the snow removal at a suited duplex. Councillor Rogers?
Received for information.
Seconded. Councillor Javetkov? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We're well ahead of our delegation time, so I'm going to move on to item 7, reports. 7.1, we have the report 15199, the acting mayor schedule. Councillor Wilbur, moved, seconded. Councillor Schumann, discussion. Just if anybody, for me, anybody that has any potential or thoughts they may have some conflicts, you can just let us know, and then we can make sure we got appropriate fill for that. But I can't see anything at this point that I'm anticipating will impact it significantly. So, all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.2, we have report number 15200 regarding our Kins Arena commercial space. It's a follow-up item. Councillor Javetkov?
I'll make a motion that we lease the space to Mr. Ma, and if we get a seconder, I'll speak to it.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor McFadden. Discussion?
The space isn't rented now, and we don't have anybody in the wings looking for space, so it's already starting to get late into the skating season, and I think it'd be appropriate to let his group rent the space, and in the meantime, for next year, for next season, we could go out and see if there's any interest in running it for a different purpose. But this year, I mean, we're already well into the skating season here.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, I had the same feelings as well, that we would, if Mr. Javetkov might like an amendment to that, that we would lease the space to Mr. Ma for $650 for the remainder of the ice season, and that we just send it out for an RFP, and then after the remainder of the ice season, depending on what the RFP says, that we make a decision at that time.
So you're making that by way of an amendment?
Amendment to the motion for $650 for the end of the ice season. At the end of the ice season, then he moves out of that room, and after RFP, we can make a decision on that.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor
I'll second
Javetkov?
it.
Discussion? Councillor Wilbur?
Through you to staff, I don't recall, but what did they actually offer to rent that for?
Through your worship, the original proposal was an annual lease, so it would run for 12 months at $1,048.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Rogers?
And I believe it was written in the alternatives that or engage a rate of negotiations was in part of number one of the alternatives, and I was looking at the $1,048.50, and that would be for an annual for a whole year, but he's not really getting the whole year. He's just getting from basically November till the end of the ice season.
Okay. Further discussion on the amendment? Ready for the question on the amendment? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. On the motion? Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Report 7.3, we have report 15.204 from the Deputy Director of Community Service regarding Christmas free busing. Councillor Javetkov?
I'll make a motion that we approve the request. I don't have my things up here, so it's from memory.
So you
It's
don't,
not bringing
so
up
it's
the-
not locked in there yet?
So you want me to read it?
Do you want my glasses too?
Report 15-204 from the Deputy Director of Community Services, re Christmas in Dawson Creek be received further that Council approve free public transit commencing November 21st and ending November 27th.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Wilbur, discussion? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Report 15.201 from the Deputy Director of Community Services regarding a report on Hockey Night in Canada Play On. Councillor Wilbur, sorry. I was waiting for you.
I'll make the motion that report number 15-201 from the Deputy Director of Community Services regarding Hockey Night in Canada Play On be received. Further, that Council approve the event in principle. Further, that Council direct staff to gather additional information and present a report to Council prior to the December 15th, 2015 deadline.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Schumann. Discussion? Councillor Javetkov?
This is a new initiative, and my understanding or my recollection of our discussions is that we would be careful with starting new initiatives. The cost, $25,000 a year direct cost is a lot, and a 5-year contract is a lot. As far as benefit, economic impact benefit, with $25,000, if you took I forget what my calculations were, but if you gave 100 people $250 each, so you could go to all the motels here in Dawson Creek and the restaurants and give them $250 each, then that's a direct impact. The impacts that are covered in this initiative vary from, I think it was 700,000 up to 2.2 million, which is another issue in these formulas, but I just don't see this as something that we want to start now, considering that we've got concerns about our spending. Where the other thing is that, recalling from last year's budgets, the recreation programs, the programs that we are sponsoring already are costing well over $4 million a year. So, you know, I think we have to be careful with new initiatives like this.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, I wasn't in favor of it either. I just had a few notes here. Yeah, the fee was $25,000 plus another 20%. The deadline, basically you got 4 to 5 weeks to make a decision on this, to sign the contract. I was looking at that being, you know, that's 1 week for every year that we're going to commit to this event. And at this point, does council want to use staff resources, which are limited at this point, to create basically another event? Wasn't comfortable with the deadline, I'll say that again. You have 5 weeks to gather information and commitments from volunteers and receive feedback from the citizens, because we don't even get a chance to hear any feedback from the citizens regarding the financial costs and the benefits. I was a little bit. It was nice to see that the Pomeroy group, with their 3% levy that they would have on their rooms, which has been in place for several years now. I found it interesting that they wanted to partner with the city on this. I would, you know, if the Pomeroy group wanted to go ahead and put this event on, without any financial commitment from the city, I would be in favor of that. We have a lot of, if you want to talk about it being development for tourism, recreational tourism, well, we already have a lot of that. If the Pomeroy Group would choose to invest in some of the events that we already have right now, that would be great. We have a swimming pool that brings in people from other communities for their tournaments and stuff. We have it's the same for all of the ice users. Curling rink, they put on tournaments. If they wanted to invest in that, that would be great. If they wanted to invest in events that go on at the Calvin Crook Center with the dance, etc. There's so many events that are in this town. If the Pomeroy Group would choose to invest in those functions that we already have present, that would be excellent. And further to that, to get all of the hoteliers together to function or to help support our recreation that we have already, because we do spend a lot of money on recreation, and we have a lot of events that are associated with that. If they wanted to go to an extreme, they could even invest some money into the high school, which doesn't receive any funding from the city, and they're in the process of trying to raise $50,000 to $60,000 for all of their events, and they have so many tournaments with volleyball, basketball. Just had that cross-country event that was up on Bear Mountain, where we had a few of our locals qualify for provincials in cross-country. So there's a lot of things that I have more that I'd like to say about it, but I don't feel that the economic impact that we're going to get from this is going to be what it was stated in the report, where there was between $720 and $2.1 million of economic development. That's a pretty wide range, and we have to remember that Kingston has over 160,000 citizens. And then the area that is around Kingston has even greater. Like you can go all the way up to Toronto, and there's a million people up there. So I just look at the amount of people that are in this community that would be able to support that event, and I just don't see it being successful. They even state that it's a 5-year commitment. Until you actually start seeing some results. So at this point, in what we're doing in this community right now, and everything that we have in place already, I can't see bringing in another event.
Thank you. Councillor Wilbur?
Well, for one, I have complete faith in staff that they would get at the answers to those questions and bring it back. That's what they're proposing. And that includes, funding sources, that kind of stuff. And I must say that the line of business I am in, the Pomeroy Group is one of the largest supporters in this community, and I put their name on a lot of events, sponsorship signs, and a lot of things. They do support this community, so they're out there. This is a proposal. I'm prepared to support this. I have full faith in staff that they're saying they can get this information back and meet these deadlines, and I would like to see that information before I decide that I'm for it or against it. So I'm totally going to support it and have faith that staff will bring back this information to the questions being asked.
Thank you. Councillor Schumann, then Councillor Javeco.
So I guess I was about to say the same thing. I'm reading in this motion, staff will gather additional information and present a report to council prior to the December 15th, 2015 deadline. So I'm of the same mind. I want to see this information before I start assuming how things are going to turn out before we even have the information.
Thank you. Councillor Javeco?
Well, what turned me off, I don't have a problem with getting more information, but it's got a comment in there that council approved the event in principle. When you approve it in principle, that means you're proceeding with it. You're going to get more information, but you're going ahead with it. So that's why I'm voting against it. If we remove that approval in principle, I could support collecting more information, no problem.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, I just want to note that there's a November the 10th deadline, and then there is a December the 15th deadline, which they've given us an extension. We've got budget process that we have to go through. There's a lot of work that we still have to do. There's a lot of work that there's 8 pages of items that council has asked staff to do, which they haven't actually had a chance to do, because we keep giving staff more items. This is just another item that we're giving to staff to work on. I understand that staff brought the recommendation forward, but they pretty much had to bring the report forward, because it was correspondence that came in. I don't think that they went out looking for it. I think somebody just asked about it. So yes, they're doing their due diligence and they're bringing it forward to council. One question that I would like to ask administration right now, do you have the time to do it with all of the other work that we have to do?
Thank you. Jim?
Through your worship.
Through you, your worship, one of the items structured into Mr. Raynard's contract of employment subsequent to his retirement is sports tourism. It'll be his job to run these kind of things.
Discussion, Councillor Javetka?
I'll like to make a motion, an amendment motion to remove the statement approval in principle from the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor McFadden? Discussion on the amendment? Jim?
Through your worship, if we don't have approval in principle, then the Rural Destination Marketing Fund can't make a decision on whether to give us the funding to pay for the... What they're talking about is giving us a 5-year commitment to pay that entry fee, the $25,000.
From the
But they need to meet on November 10th, and they need to know whether you're approving in principle or not, or they won't.
That's the Pomeroy Group?
Yeah. No, the Rural Destination Marketing Fund is a separate standalone nonprofit that is funded by the 3% hotel tax on the 4 properties in Fort St. John, the 2 properties in Dawson Creek, and the 5 or 6 properties in Alberta.
Okay, thank you. Discussion, Councillor Parslow, then Councillor Roger.
Well, we're discussing the amendment
Yep.
right now in principle. One of the things that I intensely dislike having to make decisions and commitments without full information. And this is not a criticism necessarily. As things come along, right, and they do need some, there's an opportunity, staff has an obligation to pass them on. So I'm not going to support this. I'm going to support, I would support it if this was at no cost to the city. This is an $800,000 plus 20%. Comparisons to Kingston are just, in my mind, not valid at all. You're talking about a trading area in Kingston of close to 1 million, if you include the US side as well. I think it's maybe a great community event, and it would be great if this was done by community without any financial commitment from the city. One of the things that's been impressed upon me is by staff is that we don't deal with this fiscal gap. We have to do things in different ways, and it seems to me that there's always this first ask of the city, and so I just reject the notion of comparisons to Kingston or using that information, and so I guess I'm supporting. I guess I'm going to vote against the approval in principle deletion, because I vote against the whole thing.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, we've got
One last time.
One last time. We have less than a week to make it a financial decision on, it would probably be over $150,000. We don't have complete information. I think we're rushing into something that is not responsible.
Thank you. So I'm going to speak, and the frustration for me in hearing this conversation is that we're asking for administration to bring us back a report on whether we're going to consider partnering with the Pomeroy Group, who are going to give us $25,000 a year to help build an event within our community. We're not making any financial commitment to anybody. That we're asking them to bring us back a report for December 15th with the information so that we can make a decision. I'm absolutely tired of hearing conversation about fiscal gap as it relates to budget information. It's completely opposite. The long-term impacts of fiscal gap are exactly that, long-term. They have zero to do with a budget discussion or a budget issue today. And if anybody doesn't understand that, read the reports. So I'm speaking in favor of it. Councillor Javetkov.
So I must have misunderstood it. I read into that it is going to cost the city $25,000 a year. I didn't read into it that the Pomeroy Group was giving us that $25,000.
It's not.
Second page was the Pomeroy Group were making that commitment to us.
So it's not going to cost the city $25,000?
We're asking them to bring us back that report.
But we are approving it in principle, so the whole thing is proceeding regardless of any report.
Jim?
So perhaps a compromise position is that the principal, you identify the principal, you're approving it in principle, subject to the event being run at break even?
No.
Or better?
Thank you.
I would make that amendment.
Well, we already got an amendment.
There you go,
Okay,
amendment on
so.
the floor.
Further discussion on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? It's defeated. On the motion?
Well, now we want an amendment to clarify the approval in principle.
Okay, go, yep.
So I'll make that amendment that we approve it in principle based on the fact that we get a report where we're going to break even and it's not going to cost us any money.
Okay, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Wilbur. Discussion?
No, I'm not seconding
Oh.
that, sorry.
And I'm
What?
not either.
Seconded? Councillor Rogers. Discussion? Councillor Wilbur.
I think that is the whole purpose of the original motion, is that we're going to get that information back and then we can make a decision. So we can amend the hell out of it, but it's not gonna get us anywhere. We need that information to be brought back, and that's what the original motion does.
Thank you. Councillor Schumann.
And honestly, cost the city nothing. Like, I'm sick of this, spend no money anywhere, no how, no way, cut, do this. We're spending too much money. Like, honestly, I don't even know where you guys get this stuff from. And I'm in favor of the original motion. I don't know that we need to specify that we spend zero money on this. I mean, if it costs us a little bit of money, big deal, honestly.
Councillor Javetkov.
I'm not going to get into budget discussions, but we do have other
Seems
priorities.
like that's where we're at.
We do have other priorities for spending money.
Yeah.
We've got paving. The whole east end of town is not paved. We've got lots that are
On
not
the amendment?
serviced.
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify some.
Thank you. On, are you, any further discussion on the amendment? All those in favor? Opposed? It's defeated. On the motion? Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. So we're at 9 o'clock for delegations. First delegation, 6.1. Do we have Sherry and... That's amazing. Morning.
You've got what I've got.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for you.
I feel sorry for you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So I have a proclamation this morning for our adopted families. Sherry's been a long time advocate and supporter of adopted families in our community and our region. And so it's a pleasure to have her here today to read this proclamation. Whereas adoptive families in British Columbia provide the love and support of a permanent family, and whereas the government of British Columbia wishes to recognize the care, compassion, and unselfish commitment of British Columbia adoptive families, and whereas there continues to be a need for adoptive families to nurture the growth and development of children, especially those with special needs because of age, physical, mental, or emotional disabilities, and sibling groups. Now therefore, I do hereby proclaim the month of November as Adoption Awareness Month in Dawson Creek.
Yay.
There you go. Thanks, Sharon.
Thanks. Can I share a few stats that we have? They're from the 2014-15 fiscal year. And at the end of that fiscal year, there were 941 children waiting to be adopted in BC. There were 375 that are 12 and over. There are 419 Aboriginal children that are waiting to be placed. In that year, we had 284 adoptive homes approved. And the number of adoptions that we managed to accomplish last year were 265. So every adoption that goes through is a feather in our cap, but there's still lots of kids that are waiting for their forever homes. We're really got an emphasis on older children right now because stats are proving that the kids that age out of care are falling through the cracks, and they haven't got a support system in place once they leave care and stuff. So there's a huge emphasis on older kids and trying to get them connected so that they do have the supports and stuff that they need to succeed.
Sherry, thanks so much. And again, we just so appreciate the work that you and your family have done and supporting this for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. You too.
Item 6.2, we have Mr. Dale Campbell in attendance from the South Peace Mile Zero Park Society regarding a request that they brought forward. Good morning, Dale.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, councilors, and staff. I think the letter is fairly self-explanatory, and I think this is a great opportunity to the public and the city to partner in building a capital infrastructure for the citizens of Dawson Creek and outlying area, where the city would only have to fund 1/3 of the cost of a great facility for everybody. What we said in there, there should be a very minimal operating cost increase. The plan would be for using the water out of the lake, going through the filter system, going through the splash park and back into the lake. That has two advantages. It's a warmer water than just straight flow through tap water like some facilities have. Plus, it using all the existing infrastructure that we have there, just rerouting, let's say, one of the 6 boats that goes into the lake, go through the splash park and then back. So it's just an extension of the lake in another way. The company that we're contracted with are going to get all the approvals necessary, health regulations and all of that, so we don't have to be in the middle of that. They'll do that and as part of their what's the phraseology there, the design contract, and that's all part of that.
Great. Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions? Councilor Rogers.
I got one. Any chance that any of the costs might go up after the regulatory requirements are met and the design is finalized?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
We have a little bit of a wiggle room in there in the $200,000 estimate. If we had to have a different type of filter or something that would.
Okay.
And what we're looking at is the Mile Zero Park Society can, you know, if we had to, we could pick up a little bit more if we had to off the start.
Yeah, because bear with me, I wasn't around when all of this was
Yes.
was decided. There was comments that were in there, like the parking lot repaving of the existing parking lot, and we were gonna, you know, pads for the RV, and then I believe it was Sedaten Hall not being painted. Is
last
there
year
any-
we made that request. If council had the funds, we
Yeah.
made it a little bit later in the budgeting process, and you had other priorities, great, no problem. And if you had any resources this year after supporting this splash park thing, well, we would certainly appreciate it.
Okay, because I wasn't sure if you were wanting to put this off rather than like
No, I'd rather
have
do the splash park and put the other off if you had to.
And then my only concern was if we put that off for another year, because I believe we put the paving of the parking lot off last year's budget.
I
just,
think we probably put it in too late, a request, and you had
Yeah.
other priorities with ice surfaces and.
yeah, because my only concern would be, okay, is this parking lot deteriorating, and if it goes another year, is it gonna be a more significant cost down the road if we let it keep going?
I don't think so. It's
Okay,
like any
thanks.
other streets.
Thank you. Councillor Jabekwa?
So getting a health permit for the splash park, is that going to jeopardize the grandfathered status of the lake? You know what I mean? Right now, the lake doesn't, it's grandfathered into an approval through the government. I'd be concerned that going through this process to get a permit for the splash park would affect that status?
We have a letter on file from the Ministry of Health saying no, it will not, nothing can change. What we have now, we have an exemption to the swimming pool regulation.
Okay.
And so the Rotary Lake is controlled under the health, the same as One Island Lake or any other lake. If there is polluted water for too many ducks or geese, they'll shut the beach down, and we are regulated that way. But we're exempt from the swimming pool regulations, i.e. we don't need a lifeguard and we don't need a painted floor. That's the exemption that we're at. So nothing can change that exemption.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Rogers?
I'm sorry, but I forgot to mention, I did put a call into NDIT to find out if we could get some funding for that. Have you guys applied through that?
We have not at this stage. We have, this has come up kind of quickly, and so we want to, get this first part under. We still have to get the other 2/3 there, and so we'll be looking at all sorts of projects to raise that money so we don't have to use every cent that we have in the village account now. And so that's one of the options, is the Rotaries, there's the oilmans, and all of those people we haven't approached yet either.
Okay, because I did put a phone call in, I haven't received a message back yet, but I'll get back to you, and
I
or we
appreciate
can,
that.
or we can go downstairs and
Yeah,
talk to our grant writer,
Good
see what we
deal.
can get done.
we like that.
Thank you. Great point. Any further questions for Dale?
The other, just information, 10 o'clock Thursday night, Battery Hall should be on the road to the Pioneer Village. From what we hear, we got the permit, and so it's been a couple years in going, and it should be on the road Thursday night, hopefully, and maybe make a great place for expanding the Alaska Highway artifacts and that, maybe inside that facility. We haven't decided yet what 100% that's going to be used for.
Great news. Thank you. Councillor Parsons?
Yeah. Further to what Councillor Jabekwa made, I think we have correspondence on file from the Ministry of Health about that status being unaffected by the addition of a splash park. And one feature of this particular one, if you hear things about Fort St. John's Splash Park or other northern communities, it's a real benefit to have this Rotary Lake water being used, because it'll be warmer than coming straight out of the ground, which we understand has been a bit of a deterrent in some places, as the water's just so cold. So that's a real plus feature.
Dale, thanks so much for coming in this morning, and we appreciate obviously always the help, support that you guys put forward to help and build that facility for the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale.
Next item on our delegation list this morning is 6.3. Mr. Ron Glosley is in attendance. Good morning, Mr. Glosley. Good to see you again. Welcome. Chair is yours. Good morning.
Morning. I was just coming to ask about building a fence higher than 6 feet. I'm right up against a collision body shop. It's a ICBC parking lot. It's like living next door to a zoo. You know, they wash your cars outside. They don't have a wash bay. So there's summertime they wash the cars and the wind catches it and blows mud all over my house and cars. Now winter they plow it with snow thing and then it just fills my yard with snow. I just want to build it a little higher.
Right.
Like their fence is 7 feet, I just want to go about 8 and then I can cover it. It's like there's just a fence, a wire fence. And I just want to put one about 8 to stop it from blowing into my yard.
Okay. So, can you give me the address? Can you tell me the address? Just so I make sure we're clear.
Collision Body Shop, 1428 101 Ave.
Perfect. Any questions? So, what we'll do is it's a variance that you're asking for under the building code, and so what we'll do is we'll bring it back. Jim, is that?
Yes, I think this could be handled through a variance. I'll get Brenda and Kevin together on that.
Okay, and we'll bring it back under mayor's business and have that information, and then we'll bring that back to you through administration, Mr. Glosley, to give you exactly what we need to do in terms of either accommodating it or in how it can be done. But we'll bring it back to council.
Do you think that they could put ICBC cars a little out of city limit, like beside my house? It's like...
Yeah, the zoning of that property is going to dictate what purposes and use they can use it for. And so once that's in place, the city can't say to them, well, you can't use it for this purpose or that unless we come back through a special process. So that zoning exists, so you're probably not going to be able to see that happen. But the request for a higher fence is a variance to the zoning bylaw, and we'll get administration to bring council back that information, if it can be accommodated and how, and then we'll bring it back to council today.
Yeah. It's about 20, 25 pickups parked there at one time, and you know, it's right up against you. Right in my living room, I'm looking at headlights shining right in my house.
Yeah. All right, we'll bring it back. We'll get the staff to bring us back a report on the variance request, and then we'll have them respond back to you.
Okay.
Thanks for coming in this morning. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
So that gets us through our delegations. Back to reports. Report number 15188 from the Director of Development Services regarding our road safety audit. Councillor Schumann.
I move report number 15188 from the Director of Development Services regarding RFP 2015-41 road safety audit be received. Further, that council award the road safety audit to Transafe Consulting Limited for $78,740 plus applicable taxes.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Wilbur, discussion. Councillor McFadden.
I wonder if somebody could just refresh my memory. What was the purpose of this audit?
So this was an item that I brought to council with respect to trying to engage the Ministry of Transportation, ICBC, and the community in doing a road safety audit on and partnering with them on Alaska Avenue and 8th Street to look at those corridors as the higher volume traffic, the increased speeds, and is there some ways that we could work cooperatively to understand what some of those issues are that are affecting the risks for motorists, pedestrians on those corridors, and also look at some of the other higher risk locations within the community. And that's why the separate amount, because the Ministry of Highways will partner with us on doing the audit on 8th and Alaska, and then we would identify some of those other higher risk intersections or streets within the community that we would like them to look at, and then identify, and the purpose is to try to find ways that we can, are there some things that we can do either through enforcement, engineering, improvements to the intersections, or education to make them safer. And so that was the purpose of what we brought it forward. We got the Ministry of Highways and ICBC to agree to partner with it, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 on those corridors and the stuff that we're doing.
Thank you.
Jim, is that?
That's correct, Your Worship. The holdup has been finding a consultant that all three parties could agree to. So this consultant was not our first choice, but it was the first choice of ICBC and Ministry of Transportation. So we'll go with their expertise in that regard.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
So just looking at the financial, the budget for the project was set at a total of 115, with 55 coming from the city and 30 from ICBC MOTI. As this is going to be 78, am I right in assuming that the cost to the city would be like the prorated amount, 78,000 over the 115,000?
Jim?
Through your worship, it's a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So whatever it costs notionally, we would pay a third. However, both Ministry of Transportation and ICBC have committed that amount of money, and so as an alternative, they may wish to add more intersections to the study.
And the increased amount for us was because we may add some locations within there that weren't included in with the Ministry of Transportation on 8th and Alaska. Further comments, further questions? Ready for the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Report 77, item 77, sorry, report 15203, Peace River Regional District Sewer.
7.6, your worship.
I was going to go by that one. 7.6, 15202 from the Director of Development Services, Councillor Parslow.
I move the report number 15-202 from the Director of Development Services request from Pentastar Group of Companies regarding retail use in AV1 Aviation Zone be received. Further, the Council directs staff to contact Pentastar Group of Companies to advise them that the proposed retail use requires a rezoning application.
Thank you. Second to Councillor McFadden. Discussion. Councillor Parslow, then Councillor Javekma.
Yeah, I see nothing inhibiting here to this group. It's just a matter of aligning itself with our zoning regulations. So I welcome them to do that, but they've got to have that zoning changed.
Thank you.
And I would be interested in supporting that when it comes.
Thank you. Councillor Javekma.
I just had a question regarding the zoning. On a lot like that, it's an acre, can it be rezoned as a portion of it that would be used for retail? For example, on that particular lot, the hangar's already there, so if you could rezone it so that the hangar is still intact for airside use, and the south side of the lot or the west side could be zoned for dual purpose, like air and retail.
Jim?
Through your worship, actually, if council had a will to find a solution, there's really 2 or 3 different ways you could go. One way would just be a text amendment that would say in the airport zoning, retail would be allowed up to some percentage of the total use, 25%, something like that. So that could apply to all properties. You could rezone the specific property to allow, take it out of the airport zone and put it into a commercial zone, for instance. Or you could take that individual parcel and zone part of it to retail and leave part of it in the aviation zone. You could do any one of those approaches.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers?
I thought we did rezone part of a building. It was the
Brown's building.
the neighbor, or the
Lone
the
Star.
Lone Star Pub in that building. We just rezoned part of that building to fit. I just went, is that not what we're talking about? We've done it before. We
Yes,
did it again.
as I say, that's an approach, but then that would mean that a neighbor wouldn't have that ability. So that particular parcel, a part of it would be rezoned for retail, but the neighboring property wouldn't have any right to retail at all. So that's why you might rather consider, a text amendment that allows a certain percentage for retails, as long as it doesn't interfere with the aviation uses or something like that.
So we already have one neighbor, the water store, that's exempt from that.
But they were there prior to, I think, the zoning, weren't they?
That's
Correct, and they're grandfathered in. They're specifically named in the zone.
okay. The only thing is, like I look at a company that wants to come out to the airport, and they're gonna be using the runway and everything. That's, to me, that's positive. I'm glad to see that happen. if it does happen. But regarding the retail use, they want the retail use. Did staff have a conversation with them to say, okay, there's some retail space down the road, there's some potential retail space in downtown Dawson Creek, which might be a little bit more viable. Was there a conversation at all initiated to give them different options rather than basically what we're telling them here is pay $1,300 and apply for the rezoning? My feeling is chances they won't get the rezoning, so then they just wasted $1,300. So I would like to ask through your worship to staff, did we have a conversation and give them alternatives, and what were their thoughts on spending $1,300 for a rezoning application?
So through your worship, staff doesn't normally see their role as negotiating with businesses. In a normal way, we inform them of what the rules are and what their options are around those rules. But we don't, we wouldn't normally try to point them to a property owned by somebody downtown or something like that. That's just not normally staff's role. But in this case, we've mostly been dealing with the property owner, Mr. Rorson, not with the customer.
Thank you. Councillor Javeco?
Well, I don't think we need to predetermine the results of the zoning amendment application yet. And I think, it's clear in the letter, these folks want the hangar. What they want to do is supplement the use of the hangar with retail space to make it more sustainable. So I'm sure that they've done their homework. A business like that doesn't come into town and they're oblivious to what's going on. I mean, they know what places are available, but the reason that they want that location is because they want the hangar and to supplement the use of it.
Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, notwithstanding the options that's been outlined by staff, my reason for making this motion is I just want us to welcome new business, and if it doesn't compromise the health and safety of people, I'm all in favour. So let's just try and enable it, and I'm sure options will be, given what's been said in council meeting, will be explored. So let's try and encourage this.
Thank you. Further questions? Further comments? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.7, we have report number 15203 from the Director of Infrastructure regarding the Peace River Regional District Sewer Connect agreement. Councillor Schumann.
I move report number 15-023 from the Director of Infrastructure regarding sewer connection disposal agreements be received. Further, that staff be authorized to sign the agreements with the Peace River Regional District and Lawrence's Meat Packaging Company Limited as presented within this report.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor McFadden. Discussion. Councillor Rogers.
I'd just like to plant a little seed. We have a lot of agreements with the regional district regarding our sewer, and we have an agreement with our water with the city of Pouce, our village of Pouce, sorry. And I was just wondering, there is going to be a vote in the rural areas or the regional district for a water source that they're looking for. And the seed would be if we're partnering with the regional district for sewage, because we'll be building, or we're looking at building the sewage handling facility as well. So there's a partnership another partnership that we're going to have with them. Would we not want to consider having a partnership with them over water? Most of the commercial truck haulers are hauling water out to the rural areas right now, and would it not be prudent if the city, depending on what happens with their with referendum, consider partnering on water as well? Just the seed I was planting.
Yeah, I think the reason that they're going in the rural areas through the regional district, through the electoral areas, is to provide certainty from their own perspective in providing that service to their residents. And so there hasn't been that will to move to the municipalities, and in part because some municipalities have said to them, we can't provide that service to you any longer, and so that's why they've moved in that direction. Yeah. We haven't been in that situation. But I think in order for the service, the function, to be provided through the regional district, they're taking it out to all the electoral area directors with the exception of one. So,
my thoughts were is we're going to be spending $8 million on a water treatment plant upgrade, and why would it not be considered that we would partner with the regional district on that and sign a deal with them similar to what we have with Poos and with the commercial water haulers. I just look at something. We have something that somebody wants, and there's a chance that it'll help with the tax burden to the citizens, because we're going to be doing this anyways. We're going to be improving our water flows. We're doing that. If we have a surplus, why would we not consider creating a revenue source that could be applied to our infrastructure?
Yeah, I don't think it's been as much for us that we haven't been willing or engaging in that. It's more the rural areas are looking to provide their own service.
Yep.
Jim, do you have any comments on that? Jim?
Well, through your worship, the general philosophy from the Peace River Regional District has been that these should be user pay rather than funded from general taxation. So anyone who pulls up to our water hauling stations pays a fee that is meant to recover the operational and capital costs of the utility, and as we add costs capitally, such as water treatment, those rates go up. These agreements you see in front of you are about connections where the sewer system of properties in the unincorporated area are already connected to our system, and it's over and above user fees because that's how it was set up originally. But the regional district hasn't shown much inclination lately to get into deals where the general taxpayer in the rural area pays for a service that only a few use. They seem to be going the other way and tagging them onto users.
Thanks. Further questions? Further comments? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Report 15198 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding our actual to budget variance report. Councillor Parslow?
Move the report number 15-198 from the Chief Financial Officer, re September 30th, 2015, consolidated actual to budget variance report be received for information.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor McFadden, discussion? Councillor Parslow?
I just wondered if the CFO wanted to highlight some parts of this report. It's a lengthy, comprehensive report, but I just wondered if you wanted to say verbally some things about it that as the media are here and so on.
Sure, I can, through your worship. So basically this gives you a snapshot at September 30th, and the reason that we provide it to council is basically to give them assurance that operations to September 30th are in line with budget. If there is something that is forecast to be over budget, it's up to us to be accountable to you to say we need to do some changes to the end of the year. What the report does show is that there's some volatility in certain areas. I reported it out in June. Development permit revenue is down. Airport revenues are down. And we had a grant in lieu amount that came in significantly lower than forecasted. Now, having said all that, there's a lot of gap in the expense part of the budget. So basically what I'm saying is I don't expect there to be a problem at the end of the year. If anything changes, I'll definitely let you know before December 31st. As far as capital goes, everything is very low for this time of year, but that's because the construction season doesn't start until June. So we're probably going to be getting a lot of invoicing coming into October. And again, basically everything is, the Committee of the Whole is now reporting out tenders and such to council, so you're getting that information in a timely basis. And we don't see any problems with the capital. There's a few projects where we got additional funding, and there may be some big carry forwards that go into next year. But basically the report in a nutshell says everything is okay to September 30th, and we don't expect any variance to the end of the year.
Thank you. Councillor Parsley?
Thank you. Would it be a fair comment to say that, you know, with some shortfall in some of the revenues and some of the expenses, that things are just tightening up a little bit?
I would say that there's some indicators that are showing that. The thing that's really evident to me is that the speed with which things are moving and the volatility within certain line items go up and down more than they did. There's a little bit of change in the stability that we've had. That's not to say that I can say there's any trend going forward, because I can't. No. One week we're getting indication that something is happening, and then the next week there's an opposite indication that it's not there. So we just have to be really cognizant of looking at the numbers more often than not. That's basically where I'm coming from. So, yeah, but basically everything's good at the third quarter.
Thank you. Councillor Parsley?
One last question, just something a term I don't understand. Under the RCMP section, you said, used an expression, desktop inventory was cleared. What does that mean?
Desktop inventory
was cleared.
Was cleared?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if cleared was the right term, but basically we replaced the desk inventory over at the RCMP detachment building.
Oh, just the physical desk?
Yeah.
That's what it means. Oh.
Yeah.
Jim?
Desktop is cleared.
Through your worship, as council is
Sorry,
aware,
I thought it was a mysterious accounting.
there have been, so these are two different things. This is a report on the variances from budget, and it's basically provided to give you a snapshot and tell you whether we're in any trouble or not, and we're not. That's a different matter than how your budget has changed since your originally approved budget going into the year. And there are significant changes to the extent that I believe the CFO is going to bring forward an amended financial plan for you. The financial plan is significantly different than what was okayed, either the annual or the 5-year, and it requires amendment by law by the end of the year. So it will come forward, but that will be interesting to council as well, because you'll be able to see, at least in accumulated numbers, the difference between the expenditures that were contained in your original plan and the ones that you've actually made. So that will be a valuable document for you to have a look at. And I don't know when that's coming forward, but
through your worship, I was working on it this morning, so I'm hoping at the next meeting.
okay.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Rogers?
Just one, or a few. I've read the report and I've got yellow all over it. There was, like, the assessments are forecasted to increase by 3%. So that's like $500,000 bucks. But
Excuse me, your worship. Are you looking at the right report?
I think so.
You're not.
Oh, I'm not. Oh, I'm looking at the other.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's the next one.
That's the next one. Okay. Jumping the gun. Sorry. Thanks.
Glad
Any-
you're prepared.
Any further questions or comments on
Horse is out there again.
actual budget variance? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
So your worship, on that topic, your next item is the budget timeline assumptions. Shelley needs to walk you through each one of those decision points. We need a resolution on each.
Yeah.
You might want to take your
We're gonna-
7-minute break now.
Yeah.
Thank you. Take a 8-minute break.
Oh, 8 minutes.
Report from the CFO regarding our budget timeline and assumptions. Because there's a number of components within there, maybe if we can go through them item by item, and then we can get council your direction in terms of how we move this forward, if that's all right. Do you have any opening statements or comments, Jim, that you guys want to make in regards to this?
Well, through your worship, this is the start of a process, not the end of a process. What you're doing is giving direction to council so that as far as possible, council's directions find their way into our effort, so effort isn't wasted. As you work through the process, though, inevitably you make changes from these assumptions. That's always been the case. I expect it always will be the case. But this is the starting point for the staff work. If you look at the timelines, it's an intense period of activity for staff and council, including we are proposing about 7 meetings of council on the budget, and there is also public consultation built in there twice. So it's an intense period of activity between now and May.
Okay, thank you. So, comments before we, it's an important piece, Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, I just, obviously I appreciate the work, as always, that's been done here. I'm just wondering, Mayor, if it might be helpful to dispose of a few things that are more easily disposed of, and then discuss the way we want to go forward with another part of it. So just to unpack my thinking, what I'm thinking here is we have a report that we should receive. We have timelines, and I think I'd just like to receive the report and look at the timelines, and then we can discuss the assumptions. So what I'm thinking here, just to be upfront about it, is that I'm pleased with the report. I would like to receive it. I would like to approve the timelines with just one point, as I shared with you, Mayor, beforehand, about the strategic planning. I don't believe that we need another strategic planning session. We still need to do our previous year's strategic plans, as we've hardly really scratched the surface on them, and so why burden ourselves with another set when we still got a comprehensive set to deal with? And then the other is, I think the assumptions need a lot of discussion, etc. And I'm wondering if we should defer that. But I'd like to just move that we receive the report first, to just dispose of that item, if that's acceptable to you, and then talk about the timelines, if that's acceptable to you.
Okay, so I think it's a council's decision.
If you allow that distraction. Well, I'd like to move that we receive the report, not to curtail the distraction, just to receive it, first of all.
Second, Councillor Javetkov. Jim, you have your quick hand?
That, of course, provides no direction to staff, whatever.
Oh, no, I'm not saying we don't
There's virtually no point in receiving the report. What's important is the various decision points within the report. And since we haven't talked about any of them, I don't know which ones council is not comfortable providing direction on. But until the direction is provided, we can't start the staff work.
So we're going to, I guess, begin this from today in terms of how we move forward with the budget and budget discussions, deliberations, as outlined. And so I'm going to leave that in terms of council's direction. Councillor Rogers?
Does through your worship to Shelley, do you have any comments before we start on this? Or?
Well, I think we have the, first we have council's motion on the floor, and it's inappropriate to ask administration.
We don't even know if we're proceeding through this report.
Why?
Councillor Javetkov and Councillor Parslow.
So by receiving this report initially, does that negate all other discussion on it, or can we continue on making motions on specific sections of the report?
So, through your worship, receiving it is what you do when you're not going to take any action. That's your standard default if you're taking no action. If you're taking no action, staff has no direction, staff can't prepare you a budget. If the assumptions and stuff in here are so noxious to council that you don't wish to proceed, that's a perfect thing to do. If there's some you'd like to tweak, it would be better to talk about them individually as you go through. If you want to throw out the entire process we have had in the past and construct a new one, that's fine too, and a great way to start that is to just receive this report.
Councillor Parslow and Councillor Schumann.
Yeah, well, I thought in what I said, I indicated that I was going to propose a series of motions that would direction, but if that is the convention, to receive means that we do nothing, then I withdraw my motion. But it wasn't my intention. I thought I made it perfectly clear that I said then deal with timelines, then deal with assumptions. I was just trying to be helpful.
Brenda?
Yeah, through your worship, receive for information is to make no further action, but to receive it for discussion. And then you can vote on that motion and then proceed with reviewing the report.
Thank you. Councillor Schumann?
I was just thinking that we could just start with Shelley going through and then make the decisions as they come forward.
Do we need a motion?
We have a motion. We have a motion.
Okay.
So we need to vote on the motion.
Well, so we have a motion.
I'd like to amend it and add for information, if that's helpful.
I think that was the motion.
No, was it for discussion?
For discussion, sorry.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're moving from the motion to receive for discussion.
Yes.
Is that okay with the seconder? Thank you. So motion now for discussion. Councillor Rogers.
I'm good. I was just getting ready to say yes.
Happy to hear you. Councillor Parslow.
No, I thought I was voting for it, so no further comments.
The horse.
So call the question.
So, so I just want clarity in terms of, we received this report for discussion, and no, I won't say. So, all right, thank you. Any further questions? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
I'd like to move that the timelines be approved as presented.
Thank you.
With
Second.
the deletion of strategic planning.
Thank you. So we have motion to approve timelines with the removal of the strategic planning as set in January. Seconded. Councillor Javetkov. Discussion.
My reasons for suggesting to Council the deletion of the strategic planning session, which is noted in the calendar of events to be decided, is I don't see any need for it given where we're at with the previous strategic planning results and the fact that we were, I thought, committed to these being over a number of years, not just 1 year.
Thank you. Further discussion? Jim?
We would just suggest you add public consultation, that you're approving the public consultation as well as the budget timelines.
Shelley?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, through your worship, I just want to point out there's a change in this timeline compared to past years. We don't have a second public consultation after the 5-year information is presented, and that is because of the council meeting schedule. There is no meeting. April's kind of funky this year. I left it out with the caveat that if council, through the process, felt they needed another meeting after the 5-year, then you could call a special meeting at that time. So that's just a little different than the previous years.
Thank you.
That may not have been evident.
Thank you. Councillor
I'm
Parslow?
quite willing to have the amendment and public consultations to this motion. It was, if that's what's needed.
Thank you. Do we want that as an amendment, or are
Maybe
you?
not. Maybe not.
It's okay. Thank you. Further discussion? Further comments? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Next item that we should
Do with the assumptions.
Start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Shelley.
Pardon me. Sorry.
So I think the convention, Mayor, is that Shelley leads us through these decision points.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So are we good with that?
So the next item is the decision point. Does council agree with the budget timeline and public consultation process? We've got that.
Yeah. So the next one would be about the
Principles?
documents that we need to align with in the budget.
Yep. Shelley?
So through your worship, there's basically 4 items that are outlined that are overriding documents that council uses. One is the city's vision, mission, and guiding principles. The other one addresses council's 2016 strategic planning priorities, if you so desire, and whether you want to update any from the 2015. That's up to you. It's attached.
I think the motion has already captured
dealt.
that. I think it'll be the 2015 that we'll be using.
All right. The plan will allocate resources to city services based on any changes council makes to the city services policy throughout the 2016 budget process. Now that policy has been repealed. So basically, that leaves the door open for council to go through either a policy change or just to establish services that they want to resource for 2016. That's totally up to mayor and council, and staff will follow that direction however you want us to proceed. And the other item that I've got in there is that council went through a comprehensive policy change review last year, and any changes from that review will be incorporated in this budget process unless council again identifies some sort of change. So all I'm asking is that whether council, mayor and council agree with the principles in the above documents, and that they are integral in putting this budget document together.
Thank you. So we're looking for a motion. Councillor Javetkov?
I'll move that the decision point that we agree with the above documents.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Wilbur, discussion. Any comments, questions? Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, just reference to that policy about service levels. We rescinded that policy, correct?
And we're on the one above that?
Yeah. Through your worship, Councillor Parslow, the next decision point is
I
addresses.
apologize again, thank you.
Anything further on those planning components? And we have removed the strategic planning component from that with the previous motion. Okay. Any further comments, questions? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Next one, does council want any changes to city service levels incorporated into the 2016 budget cycle, considering the previous service policy has been repealed? Shelley, you have a comment about that?
Maybe, since this was my idea imposed on Shelley, maybe I better speak to it.
Okay.
What I'm proposing here for you is 4 meetings, 2 in December, 2 in January, in the afternoons of your council meetings, which we would handle in a similar fashion to the policy meetings, which is to say any councillor wishing to propose discussion about changing service levels or reducing or eliminating services or adding services would compile those in a list and get them off to Brenda, and Brenda would split them up into those 4 meetings. So since we don't have a city services policy, it's been repealed, that identifies core basically. We would assume that's an indication that some councillors, some or all councillors, have items they would like to see discussed from the view of whether they're going to be continued or enhanced or reduced. So we'd like to work through 4 meetings of that so you can make your decisions on that. Because otherwise we start from a budget where we assume status quo, that the services currently provided are going to be provided next year. Now we might, if we make that assumption and just bring it to you with the first compiled budget, we may find that we've wasted a lot of effort. So we'd rather work through this process, and we think 4 meetings ought to be, I mean, you have 4 afternoons, so that ought to be a sufficient period of time for you to canvass all of those issues as identified by individual councillors.
And this gets to the point, I think, that Councillor Javetkov and Rogers, as new last year coming in, feeling that frustration of not having that opportunity to provide input into some of those specific aspects or specific components or specific issues that we have, and or as it relates to any of us who have questions, comments, or issues we want to raise as it relates to the budget process. So, Councillor Parsons.
I'd like to move that we hold up to 4 afternoon meetings. Let's not maybe withdraw afternoon, but 4 meetings to review service levels as per staff's recommendations. Yeah.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Wilbur. And as a starting point, right? If we find that there's more than that, then we'll have to add to that. Shelley?
Through your worship, so the budget timeline had those 4 meetings in there, and you've already approved it. So.
Yeah, but we could back it out if that wasn't your will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Does council agree with the most current assessment information received by BC Assessment that would be used in drafting and finalizing the 2016 financial plan?
So move.
Councillor Parslow move. Seconded. Councillor McFadden. Discussion? Jim, you want to?
Yeah, this is an area where you often hear councillors get this feedback from citizens, and councillors have this feedback themselves, that it would be preferable if we could finalize our budgets earlier than we do. And the reason we don't, are not able to, is exactly this assessment information. We are often very late in the process when we get the finalized assessment information. And of course, the assessments tell you what your tax rate will raise, and since Council's direction in the 5-year plan was that there would be no increase in the rates, the final figures tell you what your revenues are going to be from taxation. Some communities with a little more slack than we have and larger contingencies are able to finalize their budgeting earlier because they're not exposed to the risk of having assessments come in below what you had estimated. But you're quite close to the line, as you know. You're operating without much contingency, and so you have always been in the position where you really need to wait for these final figures before you can finalize your budget.
Thank you. Further questions, comments? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The revenue disclosure requirements policy decision is, does council reaffirm the underlying principles in the revenue disclosure policy? Councillor Wilbur?
I'll move that we reaffirm the underlying principles in the revenue disclosure policy.
Thank you. Second to Councillor Schumann. Discussion? Information, Jim?
Just a point of information for council. One of the things the Peace River Agreement requires us to do is include our revenue policy with our application annually. It's already a requirement to put it into our reporting to government, but now this is a separate requirement as well.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Tax rates. And does council agree with an integrated long-term approach to tax rating setting is an appropriate strategy?
So moved.
Councillor Schumann. Seconded, Councillor Parslow. Discussion? Any questions? Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, the ratio between commercial and residential rates, our goal is always to have it less than 3.1, right? The average for the municipalities that we compare ourselves to, you know, you have a list of those. Where are we relative to that reference group?
Yeah, through your worship, I don't have those ratios.
Okay.
I just basically, when we're looking at benchmarking communities, we're looking at taxes, total tax dollars that they pay on an average assessed house.
Okay.
If I'm not even sure the assessment information that's out there, whether I could actually calculate their ratios.
Of course, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business does that for you every year. The mayor met with them at UBCM, so maybe the mayor's got information on that.
Yeah, when I talked to them, they had asked if I would meet with them at the UBCM meeting, and met with the folks from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. They obviously had all of the detailed information about where we were at 2.1 2.7 to 1 or thereabouts, and we're very happy to see that the movement that the community has made and our tax ratios as it relates to the business residential was moving in that direction and below the 3.1 or 3 to 1 that some communities were. But we didn't talk about specifically about that in terms of comparison to other communities, simply that our ratio was below that. They were happy to see that, and they were more obviously interested in seeing it even move further down.
So my headspace is that we're pretty good.
Yeah, honestly, that's the, I think, and I think our ratio was 2.6, 2.7 to 1.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And so they were very happy to see that the City of Dawson Creek's tax ratio at that below 3 to 1, and that it had moved over the last number of years below that 3 to 1 into this ratio, and so they were pleased to see the efforts that the community were making in that regard. Jim?
Through your worship, in the past, council has looked at tax rate setting sort of in a hierarchy. The first, as Shelley, as Ms. Wolf indicates, is what are you paying? What's the actual dollars you are paying out, and how does that compare to the past or to comparable municipalities? So when you get your reports from us on affordability of taxation, we're looking at what people are actually paying, what a business is paying, what a average homeowner is paying, what an average business is paying. So that's one. Two, council has always desired, as far as possible, to split the load equally between residential and non-residential classes. So that's the second thing we look at, is globally, who's paying what. And then the third thing we look at is the ratio between, as you know, you only have two kinds of rates. You have residential and non-residential, so we look at the ratio between the two of them. But it's the third thing we look at, because you can get anomalies in there. We had a period of time where residential assessments were growing extremely rapidly. So 25–30% a year when we first started into our building boom. So council, to shield those first two, to make sure that people weren't paying more than they could afford and to make sure that the burdens were split equally, reduced the rate on residential. Of course, that made the ratio grow. But you, at that point in time, you thought that the first two items in the hierarchy were more important than the third. So it's looked at in that fashion.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Hey, sure.
I've got
Fees and charges is the next one. Does council agree that any further rate increases in any service area will be determined based on policy, bylaw, and budget requirement? Councillor Parslow?
So moved as I won't read it again, sorry.
Thank you. Seconded? Councillor Wilbur, discussion?
Yeah, I like the principle of the utilities basically take care of themselves. So the way I read this and understand this is that this reinforces that concept.
Thank you. Further comments, questions? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Government transfers. Does council confirm that the Peace River Agreement funding will be allocated using the formula that was applied in 2015 for the fair share funding? And additionally, does council confirm that the desired outcome is to increase the capital allocation to the general capital over the long term? And does council confirm the funding of the Peace River Agreement will not be used to subsidize the utility funds, but the water and sewer fees will be set at levels that support both the short and long-term operational and capital requirements? This gets into that discussion I think we had last year, the year before, about the desire for how we allocate that funding and the model for utilization of it for the future.
Staff is, subject to direction, staff will assume that you intend to apply the same principles to the new agreement, which is longer in term, but similar in nature. But we need to know now if that's not how you're feeling.
I would so
move. Seconded. Councillor McFadden. Discussion. Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, I just had I wrote down the ratio needs improvement. I'd like to see more go into capital and less into operations.
And I think that's what we've stated
what's
in there,
stated.
that we do confirm the desired outcome is to increase that capital allocation in the long term.
So staff takes that direction to mean anything we prepare for you has to show movement into that direction. That's what we understand it to mean.
Okay.
And as the budget discussions as a whole, and you start to define where capital, your capital needs and your 5-year capital plan, your operating budget and services, as we're talking about, will define how we're able to move that further or not. Councillor Parsons?
Yeah, I think staff has accurately captured what my understanding of the council's direction is, and it's a long-term project that we need to be vigilant on.
Thank you. Further comments, questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Council confirm the small communities grant and traffic fine grant allocations.
Did we miss one? Sorry.
No, I think we're
No.
on track.
You got this chart?
Oh,
Well,
never
Right
mind,
under the
sorry.
chart.
So presently, your small communities grant goes to general government services and your traffic fine goes to policing costs. And we report that every year to the government. And so we're just seeking your approval that that's what will happen again for 2016.
Councillor Wilbur? Move. Seconded. Councillor Parslow? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Your second one, which is community gas tax grant, you had already provided to the government a list of the projects you were going to do. Part of that, however, is the fire training site. You've directed a business case come forward, so you'll note that Shelley's included wording saying, you know, subject to your budget discussions. This year, you may or may not approve that expenditure going forward.
Thank you. So we need a motion. Councillor Wilbur? Seconded. Councillor Schumann. Discussion? Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, this is one I do not agree with. I certainly applaud, given the community's desire to have continued improvement to our sidewalks. And I like the idea of setting aside a specific grant to support the continued improvement to our sidewalks. And so I do not like it being sort of lost as an identified use of money. Also, my understanding of the previous one that we've passed, not the grant and traffic fine allocation, I'm referring to the Peace River Accord, is that we recognize in doing so, and as is outlined in that previous document, provision here, I'll just read if I may. Additionally, does Council confirm that the desired outcome is to increase the capital allocation to the general capital fund over the long term by adjusting the capital/operating formula split of the Peace River Agreement, and that achieving this target may result in service reductions and/or tax increases to compensate for the higher transfer amount? I think the net of, if Council supports this question that's being put forward to you, we, I think, are working we're not working in such a positive way to achieve that improvement in capital. All we're doing is switching, and I think I recognize that there's going to be pressure on the operating budget, but so be it. So I do not agree with this particular question.
Thank you. Further questions? Comments? Shelley?
Yeah, through your worship, I just have to explain something to do with the Community Works gas tax that may provide some information to council. Gas tax money is very restrictive on what you can use it for. So basically, the sidewalk capital infrastructure was one of the items that was capital in nature that qualified. That's why that was put forward that way. There's very few items in the operating budget the Community Works gas tax is eligible for. So if council chose to change this allocation from sidewalks into operating, then I would have to come back with a report that actually basically took 500,000 worth of eligible projects in your operating budget to use this money for, and I'm not sure we have it. Because usually it's capital, it's to do with energy savings and waste reduction.
So you're saying there are specific projects within the operating budget that are capital in nature that these have to be allocated towards?
What I'm saying is that the restrictions on the money, on the funding, are more capital in nature than operating. That's why at the beginning of the in the revenue disclosure policy, we have the integration concept. So if we have outside funding, such as the Community Works gas tax, that has restriction on it, we apply that first. Peace River Agreement money comes in. We work for the target that council has set, i.e. increased capital. So we will have a target of increased capital from the Peace River Agreement plus this 500,000 from the Community Works going to capital first. Because one, council has set policy on the Peace River Agreement, and two, there's a restriction on outside funding to do with the community gas tax.
Yeah, so I think Councillor Parslo's concern is that we might use the money from the gas tax, say that all went to capital, and that would free up more money in total for operational out of Peace River Agreement. That's not the intent. That's actually not what we do. All we say here is we take it, the gas tax basically all to capital is our recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, appreciate staff that. As I say, I think one of the challenges of all northern communities are roads and sidewalks, and you know, one of the I just like the idea of having at least a designated fund towards sidewalks, and that's why I support the status quo, I guess, in how we've used the capital gas tax.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Rogers, thank you. Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, okay, I got a little bit confused on this part. So the plan not to take the gas tax grant and we're just gonna put it into capital? Okay, so, but the capital, how do I say this? If it's all going into one fund where 56% of it goes into capital and 43% goes into operations, that amount of money that we're taking from this pot and putting into a bigger pot, does that not mean that some money that was already, because the percentages don't work out for me? It just, like, I just looked at it and I went, okay, you've got the gas tax grant going into our is a general fund wrong word? I'm not sure. Because out of the ratios out of that is 56.9% go to capital and 43.1% go to operations. And if this goes in there, it just means that more money is going to be going into operations. It allows for more money to go into operations?
Through your worship, not so much.
Okay.
So the
We
piece.
didn't mean that by the word integrate.
Yeah, it's actually a step-by-step process when we go through the budget. So Peace River Agreement money is received. Depending on that amount, I have to do a percentage on that funding only. So basically, it has to be based on that 2011 amount plus 50%. I basically follow that formula to get a predetermined amount. That amount goes to capital. The Community Works. The next step is to see what Community Works gas tax money is. That is restricted into really specific types of expenditures. One is transportation, and sidewalks qualify. So we want to put in projects that qualify. So we've got the Peace River Agreement, 56% is going. We have Community Works gas tax, that's going into capital. And then, on the other side of it, I look at the capital projects that council has approved. Those two amounts, plus any excess, has to cover the capital project, the capital budget. So it's all together. It's not either or, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
And then basically, when I bring it to council, I actually talk about this integration to say, we've met this target, or there's a problem, we have to do something different. But it's all basically achieving those two targets at once. And that's the difficult part with the budget, is once you start allocating specific sources to different areas, there's a lot of adding, subtracting, pulling in, taking out. But the whole thing is, my understanding is council's long-term plan is to get more of the Peace River Agreement money into capital. That's the overriding arch. Now, depending on what's in your capital budget, that can move up or down, and it'll come to council and say, this is what it, pardon me, this is what it looks like. So I'm not sure if that made any more sense in the first explanation, but
We don't mean to accomplish that by putting gas tax money into the operational though, which seems to be how this is being read when we say
Yeah.
that's not the plan. So
No.
We can take out integrate as the word, we're just,
That's how I was looking at it.
okay, let me say it one more time and then I'll just be quiet. Everything flows through general revenue. Then you do a transfer to capital. That transfer to capital amount is made up of Peace River Agreement Fund, community gas tax, and anything else to pay for the capital.
And last is borrowing.
Well, then that's a whole separate conversation.
but our intention is that 100% of the gas tax goes to capital. That's always
That's
been our
correct.
intention.
Yeah.
That
So you
clarifies
could just
a little
have it,
bit?
instead of integrate, you say 100% of gas tax goes to capital.
I'm not sure if I heard that from Councillor Parslow and Rogers, that there was that, is some of this going to operation?
Yeah, no, nothing I've heard changes my view that I would like to see the gas tax completely used for sidewalks.
Okay.
And, so the rest, appreciate the comments and Jim's comments, but I think that's such an important way of addressing some of the complaints we hear about safety of walking and transportation. I want around the fact we need more sidewalks, right?
Okay. Councillor Rogers and Councillor Schumann?
I want to hear what Freely has to say.
So, Councillor Schumann?
I remember a report coming to us where we confirmed that we were putting 100% of our community works gas tax funding to the sidewalks, and we identified them for, was it 5 years or something
Yes,
that we
it
did?
did. Yes.
And so I'm confused about how you're worried it's going to be put somewhere else. I think
Because
we've
we are
already
making the
committed,
change.
but we've already committed that money to those sidewalks, so I'm,
Well, we're asking for reaffirmation of that, is what we meant to do. We didn't mean
Yeah.
to bring this discussion about, we were just asking for confirmation that this was going to go to sidewalks in the next 4 years, the remaining 4 years of the 5-year financial plan.
So confirmed.
we,
So confirmed. Do it.
So confirmed.
Councillor Wilbur?
I was gonna say, thanks, Mr. McFadden, I
That's-
made the motion.
But that's not the motion.
Yeah, that's how I was just actually gonna say, that's how I read it. We were just reaffirming that that funding was still gonna go to the sidewalks based on that report we've gotten previously. That was my understanding, so.
You made that motion, I'd second it.
Yeah.
So.
didn't
I-
you make that motion?
I did, that's,
I
made
the motion. mean it to-
I'm so confused.
So I
I
just
thought
want
it
to
was
clarify.
too, Shirley.
I want to clarify it then
I
for.
seconded it.
Yeah.
So I want to clarify it for Tyra in terms of that motion. That
What
was.
does it say?
That, sorry.
Okay. As per the chart that was included, that it was for sidewalks, and Councilor reaffirms that.
That was my
2000.
intention of making the motion.
That's what it
Thank
says. Let's
Are
go.
we okay with that?
I'm not quite sure. What would appear in the minutes?
That we reaffirm.
That the Community Works Gas Tax Funding Allocation be approved as per report number 1407, and then I'll go to report number 1407 and get that chart, which is included.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So is that clear for folks?
Clear for me.
Thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
Other revenues.
Other revenues. Does council agree, does council agree with the present allocations of other revenues? And those are gaming, franchise, miscellaneous, as well as our franchise fee. Councillor
So
Parslow? Move. Seconded. Councillor McFadden? Discussion?
Just
Go ahead.
information. The gaming revenues, is it, sometimes get some of these things confused. Do we use some portion of the gaming revenues to fund an extra RCMP position or more? No? I keep asking this question, and I'm sorry. Forgive me.
That's all right, through your worship. No, gaming is usually used for fee-for-service and recreation community grants. Traffic fines.
Traffic fines. I just came to me as you were speaking, because you give me that answer several times. I'll get it one day, Shelley. Thank you.
That's all right.
Further questions? Oh, it was moved by, and seconded by Councillor McFadden. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Surplus. Carry forward. Does Councillor Parslow move?
Yeah. Yeah.
Seconded Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Spending and service provision. And so this is the item that we talked about earlier in terms of allowing these additional sessions for us that we built into the budget timelines for council to have a series of meetings that will allow each of us to bring forward any issues or areas for discussion by council.
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Wilbur, seconded. Councillor Schumann, discussion. And so this is a series of initially 4 meetings that are built into those timelines. Councillor Parslow?
I'm all for it. But just a comment contained within the comments made by staff under spending and service provision. There's comment made about the policy that was repealed around the city services, okay, which, and that the direction of that it be re-evaluated. Now, it says within the fiscal gap discussions. I'm just wondering, is it going to come up in the budget discussion? Because I'm of the opinion that with all due respect to the intent and good idea of this, it's going to be a waste of time us doing it. And so I'm just saying I don't think we should spend any time with that, looking at reinventing that policy or re-establishing that policy. I've always thought it was a good intention, great idea, but I don't think we would produce a result any substantially different from the previous council that originally made that policy. So just flagging that, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Ready for question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
So the remainder of the report is Shelley giving you information about things that drive the ultimate figures you see, including some of our areas of risk going forward. There's no decision point for council, it's just the heads up. It's basically a risk assessment.
Thank you.
And it's meant to help you understand that many things are out of your control. A few are within your control, but you know, we're a small part of a larger world, and so crap happens that has sometimes positive and sometimes negative effects on your budgeting.
Thank you. So I think that we're now have set some components around what we need to do, and given Shelley the administration information to start the process for us. Thank you. Item 710, we have report number 15195 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding some 2016 community grant requests. Councillor Parslow?
That report number 15-195 from the Chief Financial Officer re 2016 community grant request be received. Further, that the $25,000 request from the Dawson Creek and District Golf and Country Club and the $5,000 request from the Northern BC High School Rodeo Society be denied because they do not meet the grant's policy criteria.
Thank you. Now, I guess I'm just thinking for the benefits of council to be able to consider each of those requests individually, where they may have one thought on one versus the other, if we should break them just in fairness to council as a whole.
So shall I amend my motion to just end?
To do the first
to
one?
To delete the Northern BC High School Rodeo Society, to deal with that separately, but the rest of the motion would be, is that okay?
Yeah, I just think we should do them separately, because if some council may have a feeling on one versus the other, then otherwise we can lump them together. Do you have a seconder? So this is the golf course. Seconded, Councillor Wilbur. Request for the $25,000. Any discussion, comments? Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, I think Brenda wrote this, didn't she? No, Shelley, sorry. The analysis was done using our policy and practices, and therefore a conclusion was arrived at, which I support. But and there are all sorts of ramifications to all these grants, and I think we're going to be discussing our fee for service policy later on in the meeting. But essentially, as I understand the status quo, right, is that if you're already in receipt of something, you're not eligible. Also, your financial position is looked at, and I think it was those two, and I'm going from memory, that led to the result for the golf course, that their bank balance is over $100,000, that they get a permissive tax exemption, and in fact they also received a grant earlier this fall. No further comments.
Thank you. Jim?
I was just going to say that's correct. One of the criteria is if you receive a grant from us, you need to report off on how that grant was spent and that it accomplished what you had requested before you're eligible for another one. And the golf course hasn't done the paving project that has been granted for already this year.
Thank you. Any further comments? Any further questions? Councillor
Just
Parslow?
one other very important point that grabbed my attention as well, it just occurred to me, is the fact that you know, in my liaison role with Mile Zero Park Society and the RV site there, the competition may result in putting the Mile Zero Park current financial situation into a less robust position. I think that comment was made in the report, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. And item 2 was the $5,000 request from the BC High School Rodeo.
Well, again, the rationale presented by staff is very sound as usual, and you know, incomplete information. How can we make an award when we don't have the financial information necessary in our policy to make such a decision?
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Parslow. We refuse the grant to the BC High School. Councillor Rogers seconds. Discussion? Councillor Rogers?
That's an annual event. They would qualify through NDIT, and I would suggest that we have our grant writer contact them, see if we can help them out that way, because it is an annual event and they're eligible for $2,500.
We'll take that off to the side with Brenda and make sure we notify them of that opportunity. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. And so that gets us through the, what I'm going to say is the report section. We do have 711, the fee-for-service policy. I'd like to defer that until after our agenda, because we've got some items within there that we'll discuss following the meeting.
At the closed.
At the closed, after closed. I'm good. So item 8.1 is bylaws, temporary borrowing bylaw 4271 for consideration. Councillor Wilbur, seconded. Councillor Javetkov, discussion. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Report 15205 from the Deputy Director of Corporate Administration regarding Council Procedure Amendment bylaw 4272.
I'll move it. It's just
Councillor
loading
Wilbur,
up.
move. Seconded. Councillor Parslow. Discussion? Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Report 8.3, we have report number 15196 from the Senior Planner in regards to the Dawson Hills rezoning request for consideration of first of three readings.
Second, I believe.
Councillor Javetkov?
I'll move that the report number 15-196 from the Senior City Planner, rezoning amendment 15-06 bylaw 4273 be received, further that zoning amendment 15-06 bylaw 4273 2015 rezoning a portion of 9700 3rd Street from RS1 residential single family zone to RS2 residential single and duplex zone, and rezoning a separate portion of the lot from RS2 residential single and duplex zone to RS1 residential single family zone be given first and second readings, and further that staff be directed to publish the required notice for a formal public hearing.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Schumann, discussion? Really good to see this development moving ahead a little bit. I was by there the other day, last week, and he's doing more and more work there that I know he's had a struggle trying to get that going, so it's really helpful, I think, for us to see that move forward and get that property developed. Thank you for that. Any further questions, comments? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 9, Mayor's Business. I got an email note from Wayne Dolan. Wayne's been the representative for the city on the Peace Williston Advisory Committee. Sent a note to Jack Weisgerber, the chair of the committee, that indicating that Wayne's decided to resign his position, and I had a conversation with Jack last week about it, Weisgerber, because we need to have a representative on that committee. There are excuse me. There are a number of mayors representing the committee for their communities, Fort St. John Taylor, Dawson, Mackenzie, and so I'd like to seek council's support to have me sit on that committee in order that I think we have, I really would like to have us have a direct link into that committee for a bit of time to see what the implications are for our community and the region. And Wayne's done an amazing job for us representing the city, obviously, so I'm seeking council's nomination. Councillor Parslow moves. Second to Councillor Schumann. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And there's 4 meetings a year. Peace Williston Advisory Committee through Hydro look after all of our expenses and things like that, and I'll be attending a meeting in November, the first one for that. So I'll report back to council in December on that meeting. Thank you. Item 9.2 is I want to give a brief update on the World Hockey Under-17 Championships, and it's absolutely appropriate that we've been joined this morning by the Chair of Hockey Canada, Mr. Joe Drago, and Mr. Drago's asked to be present this morning to council to give a bit of a welcome on behalf of Hockey Canada and speak to council. And so I added it into our Mayor's Business agenda this morning with the hopes that I could get our unanimous vote of council to allow Mr. Drago to address council. Moved by Councillor Wilbur, second to Councillor Schumann. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So, Mr. Drago, you're welcome to take the delegation's chair. I want to express on behalf of council and the city of Dawson Creek a welcome to yourself as the chair of Hockey Canada. And before I do that, I want to just speak about the event beginning on Friday. This has really been, I think, an unbelievable opportunity, and our community has come alive with the event. The interaction so far from our community with Hockey Canada, first of all, at that level, we just want to express a sincere appreciation to Hockey Canada for giving us the opportunity to co-host this event. It is a world international event, and the intensity of the action and the event have been demonstrated yesterday with the kickoff. But we sincerely want to express our appreciation of Hockey Canada's, the staff throughout, from the media guys to the event guys to the senior guys to yourself, to Mr. Tom Rennie, who was here over the weekend, and Paul Carson and Hockey Development. Being out in our community, doing programs, engaging our players and our coaches and our entire community has just been unbelievable, and it's a benefit that you don't sometimes appreciate or recognize when you put your hand up to say we can do this. So I just want to express on our community's behalf how much we've appreciated the confidence Hockey Canada have demonstrated to our city to be able to execute on this world-class event, and we thank you for that.
Thank you. Do I need this?
No. We're being recorded, so it absolutely would help if you...
Well, first of all, I'm really pleased that you've given me the opportunity to come here and say a few words. I'm so amazed how many times you thank us. I want to thank you. If it wasn't for you people picking up this event, it probably would have had a disastrous ending, because we weren't really convinced that we had any communities that were capable of putting on this event. It's a large task. So I thank you on behalf of Hockey Canada. Normally in my role, I assign various officers and people to tournaments and to events. So I wasn't scheduled to come to this one because I had already had a couple of events, and I like to be fair and square to the other people and give them an opportunity. But your Chamber of Commerce man, Barry Raynard, decided that I should be here. I said to him, I think you work for the Chamber of Commerce. Do tell me how wonderful Dawson Creek is, and I've never been here. So he convinced me that I should come, and I'm extremely pleased that I did decide to come, because I had never been here, and so far I have to tell you I'm more than impressed, not only with the event but with your community, with the people. The other night I was leaning against the railing. I like to watch the games from standing rather than being in a box, and this lady went by, and I have an Olympic ring on, so I had my hand on the railing, and she stopped and said, "Would you mind if I have a look at your ring?" So I took it off and gave it to her. She was so pleased to look at it. She said, "Would you mind if I get my husband and my daughter to look at your ring?" Well, I said, "I have two of them. Why don't you look at both of them?" So I gave her both rings. In comes her husband and her daughter, and the next thing I know, I'm invited to their home for dinner. So I may be going there tomorrow night, but I said, I go all over the world for tournaments and events. Nobody's ever invited me to dinner before, so that's the kind of people you have here. But again, I want to thank you. The organization and the commitment and just the general decor has been outstanding. I have gone to, as I said, to a lot of events. I've never been treated any better. I've never seen the atmosphere from the community so involved. People are just, everywhere you go. The first day I was here, I went for breakfast with Barry and Sherry, and the waitress nearly attacked us about what was going on. She says to Sherry, "Who's playing the first game?" And Sherry said to me, "Who's playing the first game?" I don't know, but the waitress knew anyway. She had the whole schedule right at her fingertips. So it's contagious. You've done a wonderful job. You can be extremely proud. But the last things I want to say is about your facilities. When I walked into the arena, I said, "My God, like outside it looks like an ordinary arena." But when I got inside, and Barry gave me a whirlwind tour, and now I've been taking more of a time to walk around on my own. But you've got the state-of-the-art. That's a major junior A arena, better than some of the ones where I coached in and played in. And you can be very, very proud. It's just a wonderful facility. And I encourage you, from what I've seen, and what I've heard about your last event, that you should be considering bidding on some of our other major events. Like I suggest the Royal Bank Cup, for example, would be wonderful to have them here. Yesterday I spoke to a couple of the Russian people, and I said, how's it going? Things okay? Never better, never treated better, the guy says to me. So you've made an impression. The referees have never been treated better. Everything is first class. The lady in the hotel tomorrow, she said, if you have nothing to do, I'll take you on a tour. So we're working. Yeah, I might have to move here. You know?
Oh, you're welcome.
But I just want to thank you again and tell you how important it is. We had dinner with the mayor and his wife and a few of us the other night. It was super duper. We could be in a room just with the group and have a good laugh and chat. We tell a lot of lies and a lot of stories, and it makes things fun. So thanks for having me. Scotty Smith, our VP of Operations, he's going to come in for 2 days. He'll be here on Friday. And Tom Rennie came, as you know, and Tom's a busy guy. He flew out of here, and he's gone to New York, and we have a conference call in half an hour. But he really enjoyed it, and I think, Your Worship, he sent you an email already. But again, thank you. Keep up the wonderful work. You can be very proud of your community. You can be very proud of your facilities. And stop saying you're a small town. You're a big town. You operate like a big town. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So the mayor is pumping those scouts to make sure that they understand that we would love to have an anchor tenant in that wonderful facility.
It's a good thing you turned the snow machines on today, too.
Thank you so much. 9.3, we received, as a result of our development permit at our last meeting, we sent out the request for information feedback back. We got an email from Mr. Mike Sudnick, a neighbor behind the property at Wendy's proposed development, identifying a couple of concerns he had with traffic and traffic flow in the laneway behind. And so I just wanted to, because it was received after, but I wanted to, we don't want to delay this process anymore, so I brought it back under Mayor's business. Jim, do you have any comment?
Well, I'll have Nigel come up and talk about the concerns raised. But yes, at the end of that, we would like you to okay the development permit. Because we would not want to be the staff that held up a Wendy's.
Yeah.
That's a dangerous thing in this community. So, you know, we'd like to get
waiting for.
Which is not to say that Mr. Sudnick doesn't have some legitimate concerns, which Nigel will talk about.
Thank you. Morning, Nigel.
Morning. Your Worship, I looked at the traffic issues. I'm not a traffic engineer by any means. I'm not overly concerned about these issues. There is a left turn lane into 115th Ave off of 8. Ministry of Transportation and Highways has sign off on this as well. They've had no concerns. You know, there will be traffic turning left off of 115th onto 8th, like anywhere else in the city. Wendy's has put, or the developer has put the driveway as far back from that as they can on their property. So that's about the best they can do on that. As far as the alleys go, speaking with the Director of Infrastructure and the Director of Development Services, we can certainly look at improving that lane with a bit of gravel in there, and looking at that if it starts receiving more traffic.
Thank you.
Any my understanding is that Highways is requiring right in, right out anyway so the movements will have to go to 115th where there is a turning lane. It won't be available for you to turn left off of 8th Street directly into the drive-through. The drive-through will be at the back of the building.
Thank you, Nigel. Appreciate it. Any questions of Nigel? Councillor Schum?
No, I don't have a question. I was, Jim was asking for a reaffirmation of the development permit?
No, your process is the development permits go automatically through staff if there's no comments received. If comments are received, it comes back to council. You have to do an actual resolution to issue the development permit.
Oh, then I make that motion.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? You know, and one thing, just in following up to this concern raised, we earlier today passed the motion that we're going to move forward with the traffic road safety audit, which involves 8th Street and Alaska Avenue through Kevin. And so there may be some really helpful feedback through that mechanism, through that process that we do to identify some of those high traffic locations, or 8th Street as a whole. So I think we'll probably see that identified through that report in some fashion. So thanks for that, Nigel. Appreciate you coming in. Any questions of the development permit, Councillor Javetkov?
So we're actually approving the development permit here?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So what number is that? Is that under 9.3?
It is. It's 1515, isn't it?
Yes.
Development permit, the 15th of 2015, which is a good story all by itself.
We had to...
I didn't. I thought this was just Mike's comments there, but yeah, I'm fine with approving the permit.
Thanks. Yeah, we just had to bring it back, otherwise it would have held it, because we got the feedback back, it would have held it for another 2 weeks for the development permit. Councillor Parsi, you have a question?
I don't have no desire to hold this up. I'm looking forward to Wendy's being here, but I think Nigel's staff is aware of the state that back lane can get into, and so that I'm sure that will be taken care of.
Yeah.
So,
thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We had a request from the Mile Zero Park Society in regards to the splash park. Mr. Dale Campbell was in earlier as a delegation with a request that council consider that funding, 1/3, as well as the allocation of the funding over a period of time for them to repay. Councillor Javetkov?
I'd like to make a motion that we deny that request.
Okay. Thank you. Seconded? Councillor Rogers? Discussion. Councillor Javetkov?
I think, like Mark mentioned before, there's other sources of funding for them. And this water park, or the splash park, it was originally started by Mr. Mike's as a promotional thing for the restaurant. And I just don't see the continuity there to all of a sudden bring it to the city as a city project or something that the city is going to be sponsoring. It's a community thing, and you know, there's other sources of fundraising, and I think it needs to be left with the society. If they've taken it on as a project, you know, it's not one of those things that I see coming back to the city to fund.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Rogers?
I had some. I'd be okay with loaning them the money, but I think they're asking for us to fund 1/3, loan 1/3, we get it paid back. So for loaning the money, I'd be all right with that. I had a few other things, but like there's regarding a, you know, how are they going to be paying us back? I guess I got that answered, and that's it.
Thank you.
Other than if we could amend the motion that we would loan them the money.
Well, I think that was part of the request, that they we would put up 1/3 and then they would put up their third, and they would repay it. There would be a loan for that other third.
Yeah, I'm just not in favor of the city funding it.
Okay. Councillor Parcel?
as I understand Councillor Javaktov's motion, no 1/3 grant, if I can use that expression, no 1/3 loan. I must declare that I find it very, very difficult for me to be on council when I'm so closely embedded now with Mile Zero Park and with the art gallery and historical society. It's very difficult to just suddenly divorce myself from all the work being engaged in with that group. Councillor Javatkov is right when he states that this was the history of this thing. It never was a council initiative. I guess indeed, as further background information for council, you remember that the washrooms and utilities building at the Mile Zero Park was in a sorry state of repair, and council granted a similar request to help that, as I understand. 1/3 funds raised by Mile Zero Park, 1/3 grant, 1/3 a loan repayment, and I think it was that model that was thought of here. So certainly the council received a presentation from, what was the name of the group? Stonewell, and recall that they were looking at it at Kin Park, and I know that Kevin Henderson worked a lot with them, and it was redirected back to Rotary Lake because it was thought to be a nice integration. You've had a chance to look at the design. One thing that Dale didn't say, Dale Campbell say, it is expandable. So once that base splash park is put in, it would readily lend itself to further expansion. So personally, I made a habit whenever I ride my bicycle to visit Rotary Lake and talk to people. And I know that a lot of people from out of town, as far away at least as Fort St. John, come here because of that facility. So this would be a nice enhancement for sure. But again, I think we could, if we defeat this motion, put forward another motion to engage in a 1/3 loan. I'm just passing that on as information.
Thank you. So I have Shaylee and, Councillor Wilbur, Councillor Javetkov, Councillor Schumann.
I mean, and it was mentioned by Councillor Rogers, they do have the ability to apply for NDI funding. They could, as Mr. Campbell had said, they haven't talked to the South Peace Oil Mills or Rotary, so I think there's some opportunity there for them to apply for some funding, including gaming grants, and I would really like to see them look at what they have from that original group. They said that money's being forwarded to them as their base amount, make those applications, and then come back and approach us maybe for a loan, depending what the difference is. I think there's some opportunities there for them, and I think I would like to see them seek that out first before we made any commitment to them. I'd like to know that they had a foundational source of money before coming to us first.
Thank you. Councillor Javetkov?
Just another comment. I guess there was some requests from last year that were deferred to do with paving the parking lot. You know, we have to look at the priorities, in my opinion. The parking lot needs to be repaved, and it's really a city function because it's city property. So, you know, I mean, to put money into this project and defer the paving, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Thank you. Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, I think I would leave it up to the society to prioritize their projects. But I'm going to, I guess, be different than all of you and say that I think that this would be something that would really be great in this community, and I'm for partnering with the Mile Zero Park Society to get this done. I know that there's been a lot of work over the years, people raising money, et cetera, and I'm for partnering with them, and I know that they will go out and pound the pavement and beat the bushes to get the other 2/3 of the money, and I think we should support this.
Thank you. Further discussion? Further comments? Ready for the question? All in favor? Sorry?
What is
motion
the motion?
is to decline
Okay.
the partnership of funding 1/3 and loaning the other 1/3.
Okay.
Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. We'll record that. We had a request from Mr. Glossley, who was here as a delegation requesting, and I think his request is a variance to the building bylaw that would allow a restriction on the height of a fence. If I'm not correct in that,
through your worship, I believe that's the request. Your current requirements in that zone in which Mr. Glosley's house is located is that you can have anything forward of the front building line to the front of property, you can have a 4-foot fence. Anything from the front building line to the rear of the parcel is 6 feet 6 inches. He's apparently asking for 8, and so there's a process for that we can discuss with him. Of course, there's a fee that goes with that, so you know, we can have those discussions with him if that's council's direction.
So, and I think, to me, that I think clarity for Mr. Glosley in terms of process is what we should first do, and then, because I don't think we can prejudge what the feelings of council are at this point, other than to say, here's the process that you have to go through. Councillor Javetkov?
Excuse me, I was just wondering about the zoning there, to have that yard with the wrecks, like they're wrecked cars, wrecked vehicles. Is that, I guess the zoning must allow that there, right?
Your the zoning in the areas to the west of you here behind the apartment building, there's lots of terms for it: comprehensive zoning, dog's breakfast. You basically have a wide number of uses you allow there. Your aspiration is that the aspirational target in the OCP is that would convert from residential to commercial over time. In the meantime, you allow these kind of mixes where there's a auto body shop right next to a house.
And so that's a separate, I think, discussion for us, right, in terms of what's allowed, what isn't, because, so I think if council are okay with that, we'll just direct administration to pursue that.
So just to follow up on that then, is there a way that we could amend the rules, the bylaws, or whatever, to ask the owner of the wrecking yard, or it's not a wrecking yard, but to ask him to put up an 8-foot fence to protect the adjacent residents?
So actually the current bylaw requires screening of a type, and there is, as Mr. Glosley points out, there is screening within the meaning of the bylaw. It's just not sufficient for Mr. Glosley. Those kind of issues are exactly what we assume will be a large topic of your OCP review. You're doing an OCP review right in the context of things like the frac sand facility, this complaint. We believe an item that will certainly emerge from the public meetings is going to be this whole interface of commercial activity with other activities, and it's wide open to council to change all of those regulations.
And that is a 2016.
That's the intention. You corrected
right?
that be done in 2016. That's a different matter than this individual request. That's a more global issue, but we certainly anticipate on staff that there may well be changes in those regulations about buffering.
The hard part, we just can't, I just can't see how we can give any other direction but to inform Mr. Glosley of the process for the zoning variance that he's requesting under that bylaw, and we can't even presuppose just give him that information. Councillor Javette.
But we could tell him that the OCP review is coming up, and that may be an opportunity for him to make a recommendation about buffering, because a chain link fence isn't much of a buffer, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for me, the way I understand his request is he'd like to minimize this and do it on his own rather than wait. Yeah. So.
But an option for him is he might want not to spend any money until that process happens.
Yeah, because if you've got a cost of applying for the variance permit and then have to get council to deal with it and dealing with the fence, yeah. But right now, I don't know of any other option other than that for him, right? So we'll just direct administration to provide Mr. Glosley with that follow-up information in terms of the process. Do you want a motion to that, Jim, or do you need one?
Yeah, you probably should make the motion just to refer it to staff.
Councillor Wilbur, Councillor Javetkov, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The last one I'm going to add in here is a request Jim's made because we've got some current information in regards to the Hanson properties that were brought forward to council, I think earlier this year, probably, where he had made the request to remove some, or move some property into our provide a boundary extension into some properties, and so we've been administration have been dealing with that process, but we've had some really current information that Jim wanted to update council on.
Yeah, so this is a heads up for you. Council has resolved to support the boundary extension, and so it has been forwarded to the ministry. Ministry has come back to us now, saying that firstly, since they have opposition from both the Agricultural Land Commission and from the Peace River Regional District, suggesting that these lands not be included in our boundary, that we will be now under an onus to provide them information about the proposed future use of the property and why that's required. So that would involve us doing probably consultant-driven work to demonstrate the need for additional light industrial, which is the use that Mr. Hansen had been talking about in future for that land. Secondly, they're requiring us to do First Nations consultation. So at your next meeting, I'll have a report from Nigel on what that will look like and particularly what it will cost, because there's going to be a significant cost, and I need you to still feel strongly enough about the boundary extension to be willing to fund that cost with an uncertain outcome. Funding the cost doesn't guarantee that the land will come into the boundary. It's just necessary, according to the ministry, before they will consider it. So,
okay. So we'll have that report brought back to council at our next meeting, and I just wanted to, like I said, just because we're going to have to do that work because we have approved the request to the boundary extension for the property. Councillor Javeka?
So was that land originally designated in the community plan, the rural community plan that we did years ago, as future?
No, that's the issue.
It's
not
outside of that.
South community. Southeast Comprehensive Development Plan didn't identify that land.
Okay.
Councillor Roger?
Just a comment. What was, through your worship to administration, what was Mr. Hansen's thoughts when he found out that it was the BC government and the regional district that were putting, that said no to his property coming into the city?
Well, the ministry, which has final approval, hasn't made a choice, but
Yeah.
the Peace River Regional District objected, and the Agricultural Land Commission objected, and Mr. Hansen was informed of all that.
But it did come back through the regional district that it was, they didn't, was my understanding, they didn't have jurisdiction to even say that, was my understanding.
It's currently within the Peace River Regional District now, and they always have the right to comment. And so their comment was they don't want that land
Anyway,
incorporated.
we'll bring it back to council for the next meeting in terms of, now we're directed by the Ministry of Community Services in terms of the steps we need to do for that to include it in our
We need to give you a budget for that, basically.
Yeah. That's it for me under Mayor's business, I think. Nothing further that come through delegations. Diary?
Nothing on the diary, Your Worship.
Consent calendar with number of items.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Wilbur, seconded Councillor McFadden. Discussion? Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, there was a few things that we started to move on in the 2015 actions. Your Worship, you sent out an email asking for council input to develop a clear statement for the purpose of the fiscal gap initiative, and I think another part of it was council develop.
We're on consent calendar.
Oh, sorry.
Not on the strategic plan.
We're on strategic priorities. You're
You're jumping ahead.
getting too fast. Just consent calendar was, we had 3 items that were there, so any comments, questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Strategic priorities.
So Councillor Rogers was just starting, and might as well let him conclude
go ahead.
what I was going to bring you as an update anyway. So.
No, I'd rather have Jim.
So we're just basically saying that we are moving forward with it, but I'm struggling a little bit here because I really don't know what to do, because the questions that you were asking regarding the fiscal gap and stuff like that, I've got this information, and I'm trying to figure out how I can present that as an email. I think we are going to be having discussions around the fiscal gap. Would it be easier for council and myself to do it at those meetings, or meet with your worship individually? Or do you want me to write out everything that I've read?
So for me, I just pulled that strategic document out that we had agreed on in January as part of our strategic exercise. And the fiscal gap, in terms of, we outlined about 4 or 5 items that we wanted to address within that first fiscal responsibility area. And the 5 items, and I've left the paper on my desk, but one of them was we have to provide the vision of the strategic direction for that fiscal gap and what it is we hope to accomplish in terms of that vision. And the statement of purposes aligns that for the direction to administration. The renewing and getting the fair share agreement, this Peace River agreement, was one aspect to it. And so I think my purpose of sending that out to council was those items we identified in the strategic exercise. As we get the metrics that we've now and the data that we've asked administration to give us an update on in terms of the assumptions that were used to build that paper around the fiscal gap, built assumptions into it. And so I think we asked administration to bring us back the new data, the new metrics that now today exist from 2013 to give us that trends that were built into the fiscal gap paper. We also said we needed these things as we start to move it forward. I just think I would like to have us start to have that work on it so that as administration bring us that stuff back, that's the next steps we're going to have to do in order to move it forward, because this isn't going to be, in my view, and it certainly was the direction from the strategic plan, that this isn't going to be done in isolation, that we need to engage the public and the community. And so I think we need to define that vision, that statement of purpose, as we start to then guide our own discussions in moving it out into the community. So that was my only purpose in saying that was the work from the strategic plan that council did, and I think we need to have that next steps in terms of moving it forward.
Yeah. Well, basically everything that you've just talked about and that we have been talking about, like primarily engaging the citizens in different groups, that's pretty much a summary of all the information I've been reading. I've been reading about fiscal gap all over the world and what's been going on in Canada, and the latest one was one down in Oklahoma, I guess. That was 123 pages. But as you go through every community that's dealing with it and what they've done, you start seeing I can whip through 123 pages fairly simple because everything's all exactly the same. And I'd just like to say that the process that we're going through right now and what we're doing is exactly the same thing that all of these groups went through. And Your Worship, you just said it's going to be a lengthy process and it's going to take time. And the main thing was engaging the citizens and finding out what the plan is and what the outcome you want to achieve.
And like I say, all my purpose was anticipating that administration are going to bring that stuff back, and then we need to have the next steps. And I'm just trying to say, let's get started on those next steps so we don't have to wait another month or 2 months or 3 months into the springtime to say, here's the vision, here's the statement of purpose that council said they wanted to have as part of the strategic exercise. And so that was my reason for sending it out, because I'm anticipating we're going to get that, and then it allows us to continue to move it forward. Councillor Javeco?
When we had the meeting about the strategic planning, the Banff training, the Encana sponsored session with the Banff people, there was sort of an expectation or a hope, I guess, that some of this stuff would be covered off in that exercise. Do you know if it was, or if there's anything significant or substantial that came out of that relates to this?
Yeah, not specifically around that direction, but what it did was it built the engagement of people who now have a real huge interest in becoming much more involved in that community process and building community leaders. And so I think we have now an opportunity to leverage people in our community who are going to be helped to buy into that. But I think my understanding of what council did in the strategic exercise was really said, we need to do these 5 or 6 things under fiscal gap, under financial responsibility as our first strategic priority. One was to define the vision of what it is for us. One was the statement of purpose. One was the fair share renewal. And so that was my only reason for sending that email out, was that was identified in council. And I just think we need to continue to move it forward so that when administration bring us back that the new assumptions, the new data that give us how that report was built upon, that we can continue to move it forward. And so I'm anticipating we're going to do that early in 2016, along with everything else we do. Now we got policy behind us, we can move it forward. And that was my only purpose of sending that forward, was just because we haven't talked about specifically around some of those things. Economic development was one other component around that. I think it's good, right? We move that stuff forward. That's what it was intended to do. And motion earlier today, we're not going to do another strategic exercise. And I think now we just continue to build upon that work we identified. Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, I appreciated getting your email, and I spoke to you about it. I basically affirm everything that Council had decided upon at that strategic direction here. Just a question that just occurred to me. Looking at this City of Dawson Creek Strategic Plan 2015 to 18, which is why I said, do we need to do another strategic direction thing for 16? We've got a bullet there. Council adopt a corporate vision reflecting their strategic focus. And at the top of this page, we have a corporate vision. So my question is to staff, didn't Council adopt that corporate vision formally? And is there a different corporate vision that's been referenced in the first bullet, or have we already done that little piece?
Through your worship, you've done that piece.
Okay.
We haven't amended the chart to take off the things that have been done and the things that have not been done. We'll do that at the conclusion of the year. And I believe Councillor Parslow is correct in his belief that there will be a number of carryover items that can consume your time in 2016.
Yeah. Fine, thank you. I like this corporate vision that came out of that strategic thing. So that little piece, and of course, the big piece around fiscal responsibility was the Fair Share MOU, now the Peace River Accord. A big chunk of work was done. So we have made movement.
Yep.
And I look forward to working on that. I think we've got the right emphasis there. We need to remind each other around community engagement all the time and how we're going to do that. But I still firmly believe in what we've got in front needs to be talked about in its entirety.
Yeah. You know, it was very helpful for me to just even to say that, you know what, we better, now we're anticipating Council wants this information so that we can keep moving it forward. And let's start working on that statement of purpose and the things that we need to do to clearly give us the direction of how and what we're going to do to move it forward, what we need to do, how we're going to engage the community, so we have the key bullets around what it is we're saying to the community. Here's what we hope to accomplish with fair share, with fiscal gap, with financial responsibility. And that was my purpose of that, because I think that was the expectation that Council had in the strategic objective. And if I'm wrong, yeah, that's the way I was going at it.
Yeah, Your Worship, to Mr. Shute, sorry I cut you off. Is there anything you wanted to say?
Well, additionally, you've just committed to a meeting at the next council meeting that is also included in your strategic plan, the discussion about economic development.
Yeah. And there's a number of things through in there as well, like as you say, Councillor Parslow, that have been and are working away. And it's when you review it, you say, okay, we did accomplish some things in 2015 that were exactly along the point that we had hoped to accomplish. So, thank you for that. Anything further on strategic priorities? Question and answer?
No one has signed up.
Media? Johnny, anything? Thank you. No committee of the whole. Motion to recess to closed. Councillor Wilbur, Councillor Parslow, all in favor? We'll take a 5-minute break. Chief Financial Officer regarding our fee-for-service policy. Councillor Javetkov.
Received for discussion.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Rogers. Discussion on that. So let me, sorry. So we'll go through them
one by one.
One by one?
I mean, no.
Hold on.
Gee. I'm having trouble.
Now this,
for page 1.
What page am I looking for? 207? No.
You should just go into your split screen.
I hate split screen. Do you know why? I have to rely on my computer. I save it under PDF, right?
Oh, because you don't have your internet?
It's unreliable, really.
I always save it as a
Did you
PDF.
I'm getting there.
I get it. I save it as a PDF only in case I need to use because the internet isn't. But
yeah.
I'm in the right spot. We're talking about this one first.
I'm not sure if they're right into the policy.
Are we going straight in?
So are we? Go ahead.
Policy's the third.
Okay, if I just clarify, the purpose of this,
Thanks, Jim.
just want to make sure that the main purpose is we're reviewing the policy.
Yes.
And we're going to make suggestions for either we ratify the policy as is, or we
Lindsay.
look for tweaks, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so just as a general comment, if I may, when looking at this section of the agenda, there were a few surprises with this for me, because when I've explained fee for services to different organizations and people in the community, I've used this definition. Fee for services are given to organizations to support their activities, which, if they didn't do it, the city believes that it would be doing it. That's how I've explained it. A grant, as opposed to a grant which is a one-time award for a identified project. That could be an activity, an event. It could be a capital improvement. So when I looked at the examples in this very comprehensive package that's been put together, it seemed from that lens that some things that I thought would be more eligible for grants were in fact a fee for being covered under fee for service. So I'm confused. You know, something must be wrong with my definition, or we've got some housekeeping to engage in saying, if I can use as example, the trade fair is, in council's mind, is that really a fee for service? Would we as a city be holding an annual trade fair? We might be. I think we need to have that discussion. If we say probably not, then would it not fit better as a grant? So I'm just confused and trying to allocate things where they are. And maybe my definitions, Jim, need tweaking.
You walk us.
So, Your Worship, there's all sorts of kinds of policies. So there is a kind of policy that is meant to provide direction to council about how they will make decisions. So the grant policy is an example of that. It provides criteria that says these are council's universally held beliefs about grants. This is not such a policy. This is an accountability policy. It's simply for visibility. So this policy just identifies where you have decided to give fees for service. It doesn't in any way talk about a criteria on which you would do that. The assumption from staff is you will do so on political basis, and then you will tell us, and it will be put in here for visibility. So what you would expect, given the policy the way it's written, is that there would be seven different perspectives on council about how something might get on this list. Rather than one that you've agreed on, there are 7. And so groups find themselves on this list because council has either entered an agreement with them or put them on here to receive annual funding on a political basis. You haven't put that through the lens of criteria as you do in the grant policy. And in fact, some things are in here, like the Kiwanis Trade Fair, because they don't qualify under the grant policy. And so they've been put in here instead. So there's nothing in this policy that speaks to criteria that council has agreed on. You could put that in if you wish, but that's not what this policy is at this moment.
Thank you.
Councillor Javetko?
So, I think part of the reason that we've gone to a review of the fee-for-service policy is to adjust the policy if we see fit, and maybe those criteria are something that we should be considering. Going through the fees for service, there's some to me that don't fit, but there's others that could be a one-time service that we've asked for or that we would typically do ourselves. For example, like promotion or some sort of advertising or something that we may want on a one-time basis. So that could be part of the criteria. Or it could be reviewed annually. So I guess the criteria that the criteria for this policy should be reviewed and amended as I guess we see fit, now.
Yeah, Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, when I looked at this and we were calling it a policy. Well, a policy for me is something that sets rules and guidelines, and this doesn't really do it. This just says, well, we're not going to, there's services with agreements and there's services without agreements that we have in here. There's no guidelines or anything like that. Like we have our grant policy. That's great. And I've been talking about policy a lot lately, it seems, because of the permissive exemption. I talked about that. In this policy, it just says, okay, Dawson Creek District and Exhibition, promotion of the city's annual fall fair. Okay, do they have the money already? That would be a question I would ask. Are we, for these buildings and the people that are doing the services, is the city paying the utilities? Are they paying this permissive tax exemption? Is it actually a fee for service? The buildings and the insurance premiums. There's a whole lot of things that are in there that we don't even get to see. But we would be identifying it if we were in if we were looking at it as a grant. To me, this is all a grant. Anytime the city is giving anybody money for something, that's a grant. Or yes, it's a fee for service, which to me is a grant. Permissive tax exemption to me is a grant. I think that all of these things should be treated as grants, and there should be policy developed around those functions so that it makes it more clear and more transparent. So if, while we're looking at these, we're probably going to look at them all individually anyways, but maybe I'd like to hear some input from council, because do we want to develop a policy around it, same as we do for having for a grant policy? Because to me, this is just a grant. There's no guidelines in there. It would be a lot easier if one of these groups had the money and didn't even need it. We would never know that. That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Pargo?
Yep. Just 2 points. Good policy, just reading from I guess it was the Alberta website on municipal governance. Good policy provides, once developed by council, serves to provide predictability to the community. It's a bit of certainty, although there can be tweaking from it. I know that when we talked about this permissive tax exemption, staff had reviewed and probably do it a lot of the time other councils. I'm just wondering, in this instance, have you had the opportunity to look at what other councils have as policy for fee-for-service, and are there any exemplars out there that you've found?
So a couple of points on that, Your Worship. Council specifically rejected doing that for permissive tax exemptions.
Yes,
so,
that's true.
My understanding is that's
I'm
not
still
council's, council's flavor. But the answer is yes. The more normal thing is on a fee-for-service is that there is a criteria similar to a grant, to our grants policy, where there is a tie to that public versus private good continuum that you have examined in several of your other policies. And that would be possible, but on the other hand, these items are on the list to provide certainty to groups that they're going to get their money. What this policy means is those who are on the policy, their amounts are automatically built into your budget.
Yeah.
That's what the first budget you see has their amounts built in. Clearly that's a requirement when you have a contract. And there's others where you don't have a contract that these folks expect to receive the money because they're on this list, and would only not expect to receive it if they weren't on the list. And it's left, this policy, as I say, it's about listing them all in one place. It's not about how they got there. They got there by political decisions. Here's a news flash for you. You guys are politicians. You will make political decisions about things, and that's how these have got here. You could constrain yourselves. You could put in criteria similar to grant, where it would be necessary for you to become visible to waive the policy if you were trying to give it to somebody who didn't qualify under the qualifications. So, I mean, those are just different kinds of policies.
Councillor Parsley?
Further to that, just my initial thoughts upon what staff's just shared is that my preference is that we make this as something that we developing criteria by which we can make decisions can't be done quickly and without some significant effort in time by staff. That I'm just wondering if we could diarize this for a year from now. Just bear with me, be patient with me. A year from now, and at which time we would ask staff to bring forward what they consider to be best practice for us to consider, and that for the time being we continue to deal with this in a somewhat ad hoc way, because I don't think we can develop policy here. We're into budget season, we're into strategic planning activities. So I'm suggesting that, is that a reasonable way forward to defer this and ask staff to bring forward sometime next fall what they consider to be a best practice?
Can I ask Jim first before I ask Councillor McFadden? What's the impacts of we not having the policy in place because we've deferred some of those components?
So, if the referral is to develop recommendations for council on a more robust policy that does have criteria that do align with your public-private benefits continuum,
yep,
your grant process, I think next fall is too late, or we'll just be in the same shape we are this year. I would think you would want that report by July, certainly, because you would want to then engage the groups if there's going to be a change going forward.
Yep.
Rather than a specific group where you've decided on a political basis, you've decided that they're not going to get funding next year. That's one conversation. The other conversation is criteria that some might or might not qualify for. So I think July would be the time. Having said that, if you're looking at best practice policies for that, you already have a best practice on your recreational fees, you already have a best practice on your grant. If you look towards adopting a best practice on fees for service, and that is a shift on council, and why not the permissive tax exemptions at the same time? I'm just saying that if you're looking to align all your policies in that regard, that would be a big hole if it wasn't aligned as well.
Thank you. Councillor McFadden first, and then Councillor
So you're saying we just
Thank you.
leave things the way they are, fund them as they were last year until next July or August or whatever, until we can look at it?
To a significant extent, yes. That doesn't stop individual councillors raising one that they want to flag for discussion in the spirit of our rest of our budget considerations.
Yeah.
But in general, you captured my thinking in that, and I certainly
I think that's
respect Jim's statement around July, because we would want to have an opportunity for engagement of the public, or the groups that might be affected by a change.
good idea.
Public this debate political debate as it relates to these things are political, not policy. So I see no reason as we go through our budget stuff why we couldn't do that, and then have that opportunity then to guide the policy as suggested, and then make sure then we have adequate and appropriate time to engage people and groups that may come from that policy discussion. Councillor Schumann, then Councillor Javeka.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to the permissive tax exemption review that we did, and staff went to considerable lengths to provide a new policy, and really in the end it came back to us wanting to have that political will to decide on those things individually without the policy. And I have a feeling that the same thing could happen with this, as in staff spends a whole bunch of time on a policy, they bring it back to us, and then we hear from all of our delegations that are facing possibly losing their fee for service, and then in the end we turn around and give it to them anyways. Or like, I just think that this little bit that we have is a back and forth between us all, and how they got there in the first place, I don't know some of them, but there were reasons, and I think that we can debate each one and decide it. But I don't know. I'm trying to look into my little crystal ball, and I'm seeing they're all going to come and sit here and make the arguments, and then we're going to sort of throw out the policy anyways.
And you can't prejudge that political decision.
And I'm not prejudging it. I'm looking at what just happened.
Yeah.
Well, so be it. Sure.
What just happened, and I don't know.
Councillor Javekoff and Councillor Parslow.
Years ago, this fee for service, to me, was an actual fee for service. It was a fee for some nonprofit group doing a job on behalf of the city that the city would typically do. And it sort of evolved into, it seems to me like grants that maybe didn't fit into the grant policy anymore, so they sort of graduated into the fee for service to get a guaranteed annual, issuance. It almost seems to me like we've got three categories. We've got grants, we've got fee for service, and we've got political decisions. So, which political decisions, you don't need a policy because, we've got 7 different policies already. So I don't know how administration can make sense out of that. But as far as going back to a policy and putting everything into one policy, or combining everything, consolidating it, I don't think that'll work. I think Cheryl's right. A lot of those decisions will still be made, and the policies, whether they fit or not, won't matter. It would be nice to have policies that we can fall back on, say 95% of the time, and they'll fit, rather than have policies that you know, we keep including things that don't fit.
Or waive them.
Or waive them. Like, you know, whether you need a sort of a separate category of political decisions or counselors' pet projects or whatever it is. So, I don't know. But I think we need to go through this specifically for the benefits of the budget this year. But as far as policy, I guess that's something that does need to be deferred.
Councillor Rogers and Councillor Parsley?
I better not.
Councillor Parsley?
Okay. Well, as Councillor Schumann was talking, I mean, she certainly a very valid perspective, but if we improve what we are doing right now, and even though it's not perfect, then we've moved forward quite a bit. So I remember we got at least I did, I don't know if it was discussed like this at the council chambers, but one of the good pieces of work that was done in the user fees section, public-private good, with an excellent consultant who engaged with the public. I know a lot of people say we'll never change that. You know what I mean? There was some skeptics out there that said council will just give in and won't change anything significantly. Well, we had a nice transition platform in that presentation, and Mr. Johnson, isn't it?
Brian Johnson.
Brian, very skilled, and did a great job for us. And I think we have something that we should be proud of accomplishing in the city. Some of these things, you know, I looked at the list, are better put under, if we have just take an example, if we have an economic development strategy articulated, some of those things should be as part of, in this case, current case with the mayor's leadership there, as part of the economic development strategy that he administers. And could be articulated and rationalized there. But I'd rather us try to develop a policy that gives us some rational basis for dealing with a lot of these things, and be honest that other things fit into another strategy, whether it's publicity, i.e. the band. Fine, let's be upfront about it. That's publicity. And not put it in as a fee for service or a grant. They're part of the partnership we have in publicizing our community. The trade fair, if that's part of our economic strategy, articulate it as such. So I think what Jim's excellent thoughts there about, we do have a good framework there about our user fees. Maybe that's a platform, and who knows, we might get another excellent development in this city as a result of looking at it, and more comfortable where we've got certain, if I don't mean in a derogatory sense, oddball stuff, but we've got a rationale where we've put the band, where we've put the trade fair, etc., etc., etc. So I would stay by what I'm thinking. July, with Jim's suggestion of July.
I think good policy is what our governance role is, right? And that's, you hope that you can develop sound structural policy to help guide the future of whatever that vision is that you have for it. And so to me, that's part of what we're trying to do, is try to find a way to make sure that policy works for the future. And then you always have those oddballs, the stuff that pops out that's political or whatever. But I think it's really sound for us to be able to try to find a way to articulate that and set some strong policy in place that helps guide that. And then it impacts the development of your community in a positive way, and you got the oddball stuff, and then, but you build it into your, as you say, into those other components. So yeah. I think it's a good way for us to think about it in terms of moving it forward. Councillor Rogers and Councillor Quebec.
Okay, I think I got it now. We talked a little bit about economic development, and we talked about our strategic priorities. So when we go through the economic development process, we all define what our interpretation of the economic development is, and then we review our strategic priorities on where we want to strategically invest the citizens' money into, whether we want to invest it into this group or this group or this group, or we want it to do this function or a different function. It's whatever function we want it to do, or where we want our money to have the greatest impact for what we're looking out of the money to do, that we're investing into these groups, because that's what we're doing. We're taking tax money and we're putting it towards something that we would normally not want to do, or couldn't afford to do, or it's just, so there needs to be a policy, I believe, in place around that, something that is transparent, where you can say to your citizens, okay, we gave the money to this group because they demonstrated that they needed to do that, they needed the money to do what the city is asking them to do, or what we're supporting them to do. So I do believe that we need a policy around that. And as Mr. Shute had said, like the policy through the permissive tax exemption, a lot of that aspect of it could apply to fee for services, or maybe council come June would want to look at permissive tax exemptions and say, this is where we want to target our money. This is where the biggest impact for the buck that the citizens are going to have when we target to a specific function.
Thank you. Councillor Jabecka?
Maybe fee for service is the wrong term. Maybe it should be something that's called guaranteed annual allotment or something.
Community development?
Yeah. Annual community development or something. Fee for service, you know, implies that, like we talked about, that there's a service that we're not doing that somebody else is doing. So maybe that's something that could be incorporated. But I still think we need to go over the amounts, the fees for service in this list, so that we've got an indication for budget. Should we be doing that today, or should we be doing it in a budget meeting?
Jim?
Through your worship, so these are two different things. One is whether you want to direct proposed policies be brought forward to you next July that are more robust than this, that are more integrated with your recreational fee structure, your grant for this and potentially for permissive tax. That's one thing. Second thing is, are these folks going to be on the list for this year? Now, you've already decided that one of them is not going to be on the list for this year. I don't know why you would stop your consideration at only one if there are others that any councillor wishes to propose. The longer we go in developing our budget under the assumption that that money's in for next year, the more time Shelley and I have given away.
Yeah.
The sooner you make those decisions, the better. It doesn't have to be today, but the sooner the better.
Okay, let's deal with you.
We already got a motion.
So Councillor Schumann and Councillor Parsons?
Who's that?
I'm enjoying this conversation. I think that everybody's having some good things to say.
Yeah.
I like the idea of coming up with something in July, and I think we should vote on that and then move forward on this other part of the conversation at looking at all these different things.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Parsons?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, similarly, that can we not deal with the specific things under one of our 4 budget meetings? I mean, to engage in it now is going to take some time, and some people do have to leave because of other ways of representing the city, and by 2 o'clock at the latest, maybe earlier. So I'm proposing that you put the motion to question with the notion that we individual council members bring forward budget items at the budget meetings.
I was assuming that they would be part of that absolute discussions that we're going to have, as somebody may bring them up as a specific item. Either they want to in, out, or some conversation. And
there is no.
But anyway, I'm happy to have the conversation with you guys today. So first, Councillor Jabecka, then Councillor Roger.
Well, I agree with Jim. I mean, the longer we delay, the more repetitiveness administration has in dealing with this stuff. So I'm prepared to make some motions right now on things that I think should be taken out of this.
Okay. So, okay, I'm just gonna hold that because we got the one motion on the
Okay.
floor first. No, sorry.
I don't think we do.
Brenda?
There's no motion on the floor at the moment.
I thought Charlie made a
I
motion.
thought Charlie had made a motion.
No? Oh, I'm
that
sorry,
we-
my
No,
mistake. I
There
thought
had
we
been
had.
discussion about a motion,
Okay,
and it would be timely now to have
Yeah.
a motion.
Oh,
They did make that motion.
thank you.
sorry, I thought you had a motion.
I
Well, I
did
thought
too.
I did as well.
My mistake.
So,
So,
well, I would never argue with the recording secretary. She's
or
perfect.
the administration, so yeah, so if you can make that motion.
I would just like to make a motion that we defer this, any policy as it relates to fee for service and ask staff to research best practice, reference our philosophy as embodied in the user fee policy, and bring it back to Council July of 2016.
Thank you, do I have a seconder?
Would that
Councillor
include permissive tax exemption or not?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I think that was,
Sorry. Thank you.
thank you. Any further discussion on that motion? And I think, honestly, I think if we're gonna discuss the policy for fee for service and that was in there, we should have that conversation as a wholesome discussion on the policy.
And I was just thinking it should come in line with all of our other policies that we have.
Any further discussion on that motion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So you had said you wanted to
So
make
now
a
it's
mo-
open season.
Yeah, I'll start off this list in the interest of getting it out so that there's information for administration to include in the budgeting process. And I'll start with the Dawson Creek Stables and Arenas, and I'll make a motion that we take that out, $10,200, that we take it out of the fee for service.
So, Your Worship,
Sorry.
the first 6 items, which are supported by contract, we supplied the contracts with you, or for you to look at. So the one decision you've already made regarding Northern BC Tourist Association, the expiry date of that contract is May, and you've already made a decision about that. For the others, your next opportunity is when the contract expires. So for Stables and Arena, that contract is a year. You just gave a new year,
1 year extension.
1 year extension. So your next opportunity there would be at the expiry of that, basically a year from August, this past August.
Okay.
In thinking about this, I guess I'm thinking now that there's could be so many individual pieces to each one of these that we may want to have the conversation about, that it may be better to give it as an advance notice to administration for those meetings, Councillor Javetkov, so that way then we all have the opportunity to provide that input and then do any research specific to those requests that we either say we want in or out as it relates to the
That's fair
budget
enough.
discussion. Because then otherwise, we may get hung up on, well, I would like to have that information, one councillor may or may not, and we don't have it. It may make it really hard to have that discussion today.
So do you want me to give you the list then?
You can give it to administration and they'll be happy to put it forward in terms of the budget discussions that we'll have in those special meetings.
Okay.
Yeah. Councillor Schumer?
And then
That one too.
like, we made a decision and around tourism, but when do these groups or these organizations then have the ability, like, is it within the budget consultation? Like, when can they come and make their case for why they shouldn't just be deleted or canceled or?
In the case of Northern BC Tourist Association, you gave them that opportunity. You asked them to come in and discuss their contract and the value they provide.
Yeah.
So they were given that opportunity in advance of your decision. I'd assume you'd be wanting to do that
It's Stables.
for some of the others as well.
And I think that's in fairness for us as well as groups, then it gives us the opportunity to have the discussion, interact with them, and make the budget deliberations as we would normally.
Yeah, these guys.
Councillor Parsley?
Well, Jane, I really appreciate what you just said to Councillor Javetkov, because I think the way we had tackled the policy review, by identifying the policies we had problems with and people reacting to them and staff giving us a report, was excellent. And I think Jim's suggestion around the budget items we have some problems with, If we follow that same pattern, I think we'll feel pretty good at the end of it that we did review it, we did discuss it, and whatever decisions are made are made. But we know we did a reasonably good job of flagging and reviewing and getting staff input. All that was incorporated in the policy thing. So I think your reminder to Paul was very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, for instance, if the outcome of one of those meetings is that Councillor Javatkov's intention to remove Stables and Arena from the list, if that's the decision of council, then it'll be up to you whether we give them an opportunity to talk to you before we do that, or whether we just notify them. But, I mean, their contract is expiring soon, so it would be timely to notify them. I mean, you can go through the whole list that way in the meetings, because there's 2 in December, 2 in January, and others if you need them. So none of this will carry on past January.
Councillor Rogers?
So I'm not quite sure what's going on. So services without agreements, does council want all of these groups to come in and justify to us why they give us money? Is that what we're looking at?
Why we give them money?
Yeah.
I think what we're saying is...
They don't give us.
I think what we're saying is that if council have a specific item or issue or service or agreement that they're looking at and saying, is that one that I think is value and we want to have that discussion in one of those special meetings, then we'll have that. It gives everybody the opportunity to understand that somebody's brought that forward and want to have the conversation. And if we say, yeah, council says, yeah, that one looks like we're not going to go with it, then we want to maybe engage with the group to give them the opportunity to come and say, like we did tourism.
So then we're looking at saying services without agreements. We want all of those groups to come into council and justify to us why we're giving them the money?
I don't think so. I think what we're saying is council first, at the first step, is going to say, these are some that we've identified we want to have some discussion about. And then council as a whole will say, yeah, that's one that we're not going to, or we are.
Which is not to say that your new policy, if you ever adopt one, might not require them to give you annual information.
And if we do say to somebody, council's looking at
says.
ending this, do you want to come in and present your case? Then that's a discussion council will have.
So what council's saying right now is for the 2016 budget, all of these items that are in this policy right now are going to be carried over into the 2016
We're saying
budget.
if anybody wants to bring them forward in that special meetings that we're having, and we'll have the conversation about it.
Got it now. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Schumann?
So, staff wants to know in advance which of these things that anybody has their eye on to get rid of it. And does that mean then staff would be able to bring us the consequences? Like, if we cancel off the Dawson Creek Stables Arena, they're operating in Lakota, so then staff will be able to talk to us about what the ramifications of that is, as opposed to how we did this other thing.
So we're hoping to replicate the process that we did with policy, which is all of you will get your lists to Brenda in the near term, so that Brenda can split the items into the 4 meetings we have scheduled, or schedule extra ones if there's so many items we need more time than that. And then staff will provide a cover report, as we did on the policy review, with the information we think you would like to look at on those matters. And what we did the last time is the ones that needed the least research went first, and the ones that needed the most research went last, to give us the time to do it.
Councillor Javetko?
I think one of the key components there is what other costs is there to the city? Like for the Lakota Center, for example, what are we already spending to have them there?
And I think that was part of that was broken down in the reports, right, in terms of utilities and all that other stuff that I found very helpful as well. So.
Yeah.
And if there's
okay,
any
good.
double dipping.
So we'll move it.
Yeah,
go ahead.
There is. So we need that list generated from council. We don't want to second guess you on this is one you want to look at, that's one you don't. So we'll operate off whatever list you give us.
Sooner the better. Councillor Schumann?
So Councillor Javetkov will come forward with a list of things he wants to get rid of. I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing.
And also my pet projects, the ones that I
Yes.
want to bring in,
Yes.
like the ski hill.
Absolutely. So he'll bring those forward. And so if, say, and I mean, it's not the case, but say I want to keep the stables and arenas looking after the Lakota, would I then
So you know,
say?
you'll get the list of what we're bringing forward, and then through the budget deliberations, it's council as a whole that's gonna have that discussion, so.
Okay.
And it'll be a vote.
Ultimately, it'll be a vote.
And so it's just going to be up to like the 7 of us to make all these decisions with no input from our community whatsoever on what the community wants. It
No, but
seems
I think,
funny
I
to
think
me.
once we do that, then we'll, as it's a follow-up, if we say, okay, we wanna maybe engage the groups, absolutely, and having that conversation, discussion.
Well, you.
But the community as a whole, like, what do they want in our
Well,
budget?
but that's what they.
We need a Talktober like Prince George
We
has.
haven't had much in the way of attendance at our annual budget
discussions.
But believe me, if you have a robust intention to decrease services or increase taxes, we can probably up the numbers pretty significantly.
Absolutely.
I think Councillor Sherman's referring to like Prince George has
They're calling it Talktober, so they're actually going out and.
Cornell literally goes around and has little mini community meetings before.
But it's through our budget deliberations, we have public consultations, we've done that, and the participation is not strong.
That's putting it.
Well, it's going to be strong this year, I think.
Well, we can
Hopefully.
make it strong. Let's help that.
Thank
So
you.
I'm
Is that
gonna go
all
over
for
on
our fee-for-service
Facebook, I
policy?
guess.
Next steps are feed them in and
Next
we'll
steps.
move it forward in budget.
I want to see what your
Thank
list is.
Why-
I want to see your list.
Anything further on 7-Eleven?
I'll write
That's
the
all.
list out. I'll
Terrified.
put it-
So you can't have a secret list, okay? Nothing's going to happen if you have a secret list. I mean, it's like the
Motion-
secret meetings the
Motion to
council
adjourn.
Parcel.
Councillor McFadden,
We need 'em.
seconded. Councillor
Okay.
Wilbur. All in favor?
McFadden.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Opposed?
go
Councillor
Carried.
McFadden.
McFadden
Yes,
is
now
part of
he's
your
on that list.
secret group?